The Air Force is committed to renewing our culture of innovation.
What AFWERX is going to do is be that bridge builder to help bridge ideas from academia and from industry to our airmen so that we can maintain that advantage.
From cotton and wood to supersonic titanium and carbon fiber, innovations have allowed us to strike our enemies anywhere at any time. But our greatest asset, the one thing that makes all the fancy hardware go, is our people, uniformed or civilian. Our Air Force is powered by creative, stubborn, awesome people. People who won't take no for an answer. People who rise up to any challenge before them. We don't just break barriers, we smash them. The AFWERX space is just a small part of a larger picture. Beyond these doors are spaces for innovators to think, test, tinker, take us into the future. It's an inviting space that allows our airmen and our partners the ability to focus solely on the problem at hand. Its very design encourages collaboration.
As an intermediary facility that's outside the gate, they can easily get in here. It's also a place that's not your typical space that young people, millennials, older people, whatever, they're all going to want to kind of hang out in.
As a student or recently graduated student, resources to do projects is something that is very limited. And being able to go to the Air Force, present a project, then pick it up, and whether it's funding, whether it's money or human resources, experience that they have to help make those projects become reality is something that I see as a big benefit.
It facilitates the velocity of ideas, it facilitates the velocity of innovation and collaboration.
AFWERX will unleash the flame of innovation that is the culture of our greatest asset. Airmen, building bridges to the future.
Greetings, everyone, from the AFWERX team. Hey, welcome to an incredible lineup as we transition AFWERX into this next exciting 3.0 phase. My name is James Barella. I'm the Deputy Director of AFWERX, and I'll be your host today. I hope that those of you who joined early were able to enjoy seeing those videos from our senior leaders discussing what excites them about AFWERX. Before we get started, though, I want to introduce the rest of our leadership team up here, beginning with the Director of SpaceWorks, Lieutenant Colonel Walter McMillan, goes by Rock. Rock, great to have you out here today from the SpaceWorks Hub in Los Angeles.
Yeah, thanks, Sass. I really appreciate the introduction. What an exciting time it is. Last time we were on this big stage, we introduced SpaceWorks, and it's been an exciting, first year and a half in the seat. I'm even more excited of what's to come. So I know that this is going to be an exciting event as we talk about our new 3.0 effort, and I'm just super excited to be here today. Thanks, Sass.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, next up, next to me is Colonel Nathan Diller. He goes by VDOF. He's joining us here at the Dayton Hub on his last full day of being the director of AFWERX. VDOF's a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy. He's an F-16 test pilot. He's got master's degrees from both MIT and Harvard. VDOF, welcome back to Ohio, and thanks for being here with us today.
Sass, thanks a lot. Thanks for the incredible work that you've done helping lead this team here in Dayton as we have this AFWERX worldwide effort that we've really going to have a chance to dig into, see some of the really remarkable steps that this organization has taken with all of your help, with incredible teammates that we have certainly here internal to the Air Force Research Laboratory, the Air Force Materiel Command, and then more broadly across this broad set of stakeholders that we have in industry, with the investors, and even across the entire interagency. So this is a great opportunity as we make this transition from this 1.0 to this 2.0 effort, and now what a really incredible opportunity to spend this last day here in AFWERX, in particular with my recently newfound teammate who will lead AFWERX forward in the 3.0 era. Colonel Elliot Neo Lee is coming from a background first starting in my alma mater at the Air Force Academy, went on to move eventually into the test pilot school, graduate of the Air Force Institute of Technologies, a really great amount of work that he did in the test community, went on to work in program management, exciting programs like the B-21 that was just rolled out last week, other classified programs across air and space. And so as we go forward into this next step of a one lab supporting two services, this AFWERX and the SpaceWorks, you absolutely could not find a better leader than Colonel Lee to step forward. Neo, thanks for joining us. Thanks for stepping up to this exciting opportunity and this incredible team. Happy to have you here, and really welcome to the exciting things that are happening in AFWERX in this next step.
Yeah, Vidal, thanks so much. It's an honor to be here. It's really humbling to step up and be the leader of AFWERX, coming into a very dynamic organization. And I'm excited. I'm excited about all the things that we're going to go do here, about tapping into the innovation that's out there in the private sector. If you're here with us today, thanks for joining us as we talk about where we're going to go with AFWERX over the next few years. I look forward to accelerating change with you. And with that, Sass, let's talk about what's on the agenda today.
Let's do that. Perfect. We really do have an incredible lineup today. We're going to talk about where AFWERX has been, where AFWERX is going. So we're going to start right back with Vidal, who's going to talk about these AFWERX successes that started out at the initial launch, and they continue until today. And then Neo is going to take over and introduce some of these initiatives that are underpinning the rollout of AFWERX 3.0. From there, we're going to go back to Rock. Rock's going to give you a deep dive into SpaceWorks. And then what we'll do is we'll vector over into the AFWERX mission areas. We like to frame these mission areas in terms of technology and talent and transition. And those correspond to our AFVentures, our Spark, and our Prime divisions. From a technology perspective, right, our AFVentures leadership focus is going to be on bringing that non-traditional technology company into the defense industrial base, while also overseeing the Air Force's small business innovation research and small business technology transfer programs. You probably know those as the SBIR and SITR programs. So from technology, we'll roll over to talent. And on the talent side, our Spark team is going to highlight how we can empower and energize our airmen and our guardians as they incorporate innovation principles into their own organizations and they solve problems there from a grassroots perspective. And then we'll go over to transition. And on the transition side, our Prime team is going to give examples of how they identify and accelerate that dual-use technology that provides defense capabilities as well as commercial success stories. Now, all of that world-class activity really needs some world-class support. And we've got world-class support, and we want to talk to you about that as well today. Our contracting team is going to share some lessons learned of how they can work rapidly and innovatively and do so to award thousands of contracts every single year. On top of that, our lean and our strong finance team, which has some no-kidding rock stars, they're going to talk to you about how they can manage this annual budget of over $1 billion per year with a small yet lean team. And really the foundation that of this entire geographically dispersed organization is our operations team, and they're going to talk to you about some of the key support functions that keeps this innovation engine finely tuned. After all that, we're going to do some Q&A. And that way we can hear from you and what you want to know about, and we can answer some questions for you live and in real time. So, big packed agenda, looking forward to it, excited. Vidal, you want to kick this off?
Yeah, absolutely. So please do post those questions that you have out there, either on our Zoom channel, there on YouTube, either one. We'll be collecting those throughout the time. And you know, I think that's actually a really important segue as we talk. How did we get here today? And it really started with those innovators, you know, going back 2017, eventually a launch of AFWERX 1.0. At that time, it didn't necessarily have its follow-on versions, but AFWERX, there in January of 2018, with our Secretary of the Air Force, with the Vice President of the United States, saying we need to think differently how we are going to address the broader community that really might have a lot to offer as we look at the challenges globally today. How do we start to adjust our culture? How do we approach with a different level of humility an idea that great things could come outside of potentially our standard traditional defense industrial base, outside of where I got to spend a lot of quality time in the Pentagon, outside of the walls of the Pentagon, and using really a full suite of opportunities that have been provided by the Congress in the way we transition capabilities across this valley of death. And so it started with that 1.0 version that gave an opportunity to really think about how we bring in new ideas, how do we do that differently. And so from that, we had multiple different innovations that sprouted. The first was obviously just this airman innovation. How do we take ideas that are on the flight line and turn challenges really into opportunities for solutions? So that was with the AFWERX team in its 1.0 instantiation. There's also this notion that there's a lot of capital out there, a lot of talent out there that we haven't necessarily tapped into. And so AFVentures launched multiple initial experiments in this open topic idea, and quickly saw that was a pretty compelling way to reduce barriers to entry, to bring in that outside capital, that outside talent that otherwise we might not have access to. The next was an opportunity in the middle of COVID where we actually came to this virtual environment with the Agility Prime program. After hopes of being able to fly these new aircraft at a launch at South by Southwest, COVID quickly locked down the world, and we launched Agility Prime, which was this concept that there are emerging technologies that are out there that, with a little bit of a nudge from the Air Force, it's actually possible to not only unlock a huge commercial market, but also provide, again, access to that talent, that technology, and to capital that, again, might not be possible. Creating all of this, this open front door was the Small Business Innovation Center of Excellence, who was rapidly coming up with new approaches to contracting, new approaches to financial management to reduce those burdens, to expedite, make sure that we stay relevant. And then certainly last but not least was we've had a new Space Force that sprung up in the middle of all this. And truly some of the greatest innovations both in processes and in products has come from that space. And so in the summer of 2020, we merged these different capabilities together into one AFWERX 2.0. And anyone who's dealt with mergers before understands the challenge, but really I think what we're going to see is we moved very quickly from these different innovation organizations and slowly started bringing them together, realizing that these different innovations actually flow together to create a capability organization. And so AFWERX moved into the Air Force Materiel Command. This is the engine that creates all of the great capabilities that we have, and into the Air Force Research Laboratory. And so during that period, with Ventures, now over $1 billion budget, bringing over 2,200 companies, taking over 26 companies in partnership that have started as small businesses and are now those large $1 billion endeavors. Certainly us being able to partner with them, we can't take credit for them getting to that point, but access to that capability. With Spark, now over 100 different Spark cells. You have capabilities that were deployed to Ukraine that came out of our Spark tanks. When we look at the Agility Prime program, just this year, the first airman to ever fly in an electric aircraft, or 5 flying prototypes since that began, and continuing to leverage that external capital out there, bring in some of the most exciting technologies from large electrical power systems to autonomous systems to advanced manufacturing. And so I think we'll have an opportunity to hear from the team today on some of those things where we have, I think, seen some great success in conjunction with the great partnerships out there. But most importantly, we've been able, I think, to take feedback from all of you and realize where we can take the next step. How do we get to recurring revenue for the companies that are out there? How do we get to fielded capability? And you'll hear about those lessons and how, under the leadership of Colonel Lee, he will take this organization and all the associated partnerships to that next level in AFWERX 3.0. So Neo, over to you to tell us a little bit of an idea of what this looks like going forward.
Yeah, thanks so much, Vidolf, and great history lesson, a lot of success behind AFWERX. I'd like to start by talking about why do a 3.0? Why should we reorganize and relaunch? And it's really about being a learning organization. It's about looking at what we have done under 2.0, seeing that wild success. When we brought together the divisions, Spark, Ventures, and Prime, we saw an increase in transitions. We saw 100% execution of that SITR portfolio 2 years in a row, all indicators that this was the right thing to do. And so when you do something that works, you want to reflect on that, you want to understand why did that work, and then you want to repeat it. And then you want to institutionalize that into your organization and make it sustainable. And that's where we're at now. So AFWERX started out as a startup, like organization. We scaled up. Now we've reached the point where we understand, hey, this works. And we're going to do this by growing the team. We're going to organize it properly. We're going to bring in the tools and turn it into a directorate under the Air Force Research Laboratory. So that's why we're doing that. And you're going to hear throughout the day about the tactical implementation of 3.0. What I'd like to do is talk about what are the strategic objectives here? What's the vision? And so just leave you with three, okay? The first is it's about aligning our priorities. So we've done a lot of work within AFWERX, hundreds of successes across the department. We now have a list of 7 operational imperatives from the Secretary of the Air Force. You're going to hear about opportunities where we're going to take these powerful tools within AFWERX and apply them towards those operational imperatives. And with that comes more funding opportunities for the SBIR-SITA program. We're going to look at breaking down barriers for classified work for companies with novel solutions that may need to be brought in and protected down the road. So you're going to hear about that. But again, it's aligning our priorities so that we can get after some of the big challenges of the service. And the second is it's about connection. So if we look at on one end, we have the warfighter. The warfighter knows what needs to be done. On the other end, we have the technologist who knows what is the art of the possible. And it's all the dots in between. It's all the stakeholders. And it's a massive ecosystem. We have small businesses. We have large businesses. We have stakeholders in the government, requirements owners, operators. All of these individuals work together to close that gap. And what we have done in AFWERX is put together a powerful pack of tools that allow us to foster that communication, to curate challenges, to find ways to bring those ideas and get them fielded more quickly, get prototypes out there. And we've learned a lot from doing that. And so going forward, you're going to see a much more deliberate approach as we take Spark, Prime, and Ventures and integrate those. It's going to increase the speed and rigor where we get these capabilities forward. And so that's the second. And then the third is just maturing the organization. So it's looking at how we've executed, growing the organization so that it works, bringing in the tools to make our jobs more efficient, more effective, so that we can communicate, get the feedback that we need from industry and from our stakeholders as we go forward. And so that's just a top-level overview. I'd like to hand it over to my new boss so that you can hear more, the Honorable Andrew Hunter. He's a Service Acquisition Executive for the Department of the Air Force, responsible for a $60 billion annual budget for Air and Space Force acquisitions. Mr. Hunter, over to you.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for the next evolution of AFWERX. Building on the approach AFWERX created to leverage non-traditional suppliers, small business, commercial technology, and private capital to deliver capability for the Department of the Air Force's operational imperatives. I want to begin by congratulating Colonel Elliott Lee, who will be taking on his new role as the Director of AFWERX tomorrow. He comes with an incredible background in space and air acquisition, which is the perfect mix for leading AFWERX and SpaceWorks into this new 3.0 phase. I want to also personally thank Colonel Nate Diller for his vision and leadership of AFWERX that have brought us to today. Over the last year, teams of experts from the operational and acquisition communities across the Department of the Air Force have conducted deep analysis in support of the Secretary of the Air Force's 7 operational imperatives. This analysis has given us clear direction for prioritizing our investment to ensure the United States can deter conflict and project power against pacing challenges. AFWERX has an important role to play in delivering capabilities to address the OIs. The 3 core lines of effort in AFWERX, Spark, AFVentures, and Prime, will each be aligned to the operational imperatives. In addition to focusing on the Air Force's top priorities, this will also serve to better coordinate activities across the AFWERX lines of effort. In AFWERX 2.0, the AFWERX Spark teams were key touchpoints with the warfighter and the innovation ecosystem in our Department of the Air Force. In AFWERX 3.0, AFWERX Spark teams can facilitate more deliberate and iterative engagement on AFWERX projects with the warfighter from conception to fielding. The AFVentures line of effort has had a positive impact in expanding the Air Force's access to the innovation base and leveraging private capital. In AFWERX 2.0, over 70% of the companies that AFVentures worked with were new to the Department of the Air Force. AFWERX projects were also highly successful in leveraging venture capital and other sources of private investment. In the AFWERX 3.0 model, we intend to continue to expand that industrial base to include more companies, while having opportunities to do classified work and specific lines of funding connected to the operational imperatives. The AFWERX Prime model creates several opportunities to accelerate fielding of critical capabilities for the OIs. We've recently launched the new Autonomy Prime, which directly aligns with a key initiative in our operational imperatives. Programs such as this will help us get a head start on shaping the acquisition system to accelerate adoption of new technologies such as autonomy through early work on complicated tasks, such as certification of autonomous systems. Prime provides a way for doing that technical risk reduction as well as regulatory risk reduction. We plan to further address key OI priorities under the Prime model. It's also important to note that AFWERX 3.0 will have a deliberate focus on fielding capability. Therefore, we'll apply additional effort to not only creating research and development funding opportunities, but also linking them to the procurement funding necessary to turn these projects into delivered capability at scale. Since assuming my position earlier this year, I've outlined Air Force acquisition focus areas in close coordination with General Richardson and Air Force Material Command leadership to ensure alignment to the National Defense Strategy and the Secretary's operational imperatives. The three focus areas and associated objectives are meant to drive sound fundamentals in program execution, acquisition policy, and human capital. My first focus area is delivering operational capability to the warfighter. The second area is shaping a vibrant innovation base for strategic competition. The third area is transforming the acquisition system for the 21st century. AFWERX 3.0 will also directly support these focus areas through its focus on the OIs, through its critical role in shaping the innovation base, and by serving to drive innovation in the acquisition system. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today for this exciting discussion of AFWERX 3.0 and for your ongoing engagement as we work to develop critical capabilities for the Department of the Air Force and for our nation. We look forward to working with you. Enjoy today's event.
Ms. Turner, thanks so much for those outstanding comments. Thanks so much for your leadership in helping us evolve AFWERX into this 3.0 version. As we've done this AFWERX evolution, one of the very important things has been that connectivity to the head of Air Force acquisitions. And while we have a political appointee as the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, there is a particular partner there in the military deputy to that Assistant Secretary. That military deputy, during much of this time, seeing this evolution of AFWERX, was General Duke Richardson, who today leads the Air Force Material Command, responsible for helping actually organize, train, and equip AFWERX as we're doing it here. General Richardson, as the Air Force Material Commander, leads over $89 billion of execution. 89,000 people, $72 billion of execution in that role. And this is the organization that creates those amazing flying things and really brings them in through this transition. So excited to hand it over to General Richardson to talk about this evolution and see what this means to our Air Force Material Command.
Welcome everyone to today's kickoff event for AFWERX 3.0. I'm General Duke Richardson, the commander of Air Force Material Command. I've been around since AFWERX 1.0 started in 2017, and it's been a real joy to watch it evolve and get and strengthen and get even more aligned to what we're trying to do as a nation. I want to just kind of walk you through where AFWERX has been since 2017, and then as we kick off AFWERX 3.0, tie it very directly to the strategic plans that the Department of Defense is implementing currently. So when I think about AFWERX 1.0 in 2017, the idea there was to really build an innovator's culture inside the Department of the Air Force. I think AFWERX 1.0 did a great job at that time in doing that. It created a lot of energy. We all remember a lot of the Collider events and just a lot of the great buzz that was created in AFWERX 1.0. One of the things that it was lacking, though, is it was lacking a little bit of discipline to go along with the speed. And that's why in 2020, we created AFWERX 2.0. And we did a couple big things in AFWERX 2.0. We created a senior material leader, which is a acquisition leader, if you will, group commander equivalent to execute the dollars. We moved it underneath Air Force Research Lab, which is part of Air Force Material Command, to add some of that rigor, some of the discipline to the speed and we did it in a way that we didn't lose the speed. In fact, in 22, under AFWERX 2.0, we awarded 1,300 contracts, about $1.2 billion, which is really quite remarkable. AFWERX 2.0 also had a very heavy focus on a bottom-up approach, and so we were essentially doing open topic calls where we were really very open to ideas from small businesses, from industry, perhaps things that we didn't know that we needed. And that worked pretty well in AFWERX 2.0. And we created, of course, the three arms that you're familiar with, the Spark cells, that we have about 80 of them out there now at the various bases. We created AFVentures. We pulled the SBIR, SBIR, STTR funding and processes underneath AFVentures to execute that, which is about $1 billion a year in funding. And of course, we created this idea of primes. And our first prime, Agility Prime, has been running for a couple of years and has been extremely successful. I think one of the areas that AFWERX 2.0 was missing, though, was it was missing more of a very tight linkage to the strategic plans of our nation. And that's really why we created, or why we're moving now towards AFWERX 3.0, which is what we're kicking off now. And so it really starts with the National Defense Strategy. The National Defense Strategy is a couple of pillars that are central tenets to AFWERX 3.0, is this idea of integrated deterrence. And that is a whole of government approach to get after our key challenger, that being the People's Republic of China. And so AFWERX 3.0 is really an extension of that idea, this integrated deterrence idea, where we get the integration of all of the Air Force behind AFWERX 3.0. Another aspect of the National Defense Strategy is the idea of alliances, and so AFWERX is really very much about alliances. Alliances across the Department of the Air Force, alliances with industry, to the lowest levels of industry. And so there's a very large focus in the National Defense Strategy in AFWERX 3.0. Another thing that affected AFWERX 3.0 pretty positively is the Secretary's operational imperatives. And so you're going to see AFWERX 3.0, instead of having as extensive of a focus on open topics, is we're going to move it more towards a mix of open topics and specific topics. And the specific topics are going to focus on things like the operational imperatives. And not just the operational imperatives, but also the Rapid Sustainment Office and making sure that we have sustainable weapon systems. And so there'll be a mix now going forward. We're trying to dial that in terms of what that mix should look like. We're going to continue with the strategic financing, which allows us to scale to much larger awards, and also tactical financing. So those tools will continue. And so AFWERX 3.0 really is about adding a top-down approach to the bottom-up approach that you've been seeing in AFWERX 2.0, changing that mix from open topic to specific topic to being a little bit less open topic to the mix, and that's really that mix is going to allow us to get after some of the top-down things. We'll focus on things like C3BM, ACE, autonomy, all those things that you're seeing come to life in the operational imperatives. Another thing that we're going to do in AFWERX 3.0 is also strengthen the role of the spark cells. And so we want to make sure that when we have innovative ideas at the lowest levels within the Air Force, that we have the ability to scale them and then also to sustain them. Because really that's what we need to get those ideas across the valley of death, is to get them into production, and then not just production, but make sure that we can sustain them going forward. And so we're starting a new era here. We've got a leadership change that's going to occur as we launch AFWERX 3.0. And so when you think about AFWERX 3.0, I'd like you to think about it as really a continuation of 2.0, which itself was a continuation of 1.0, making it stronger, making it more relevant, making it more of the Air Force fabric. At this point of the evolution, I would be surprised if you found a senior leader in the Air Force that isn't very familiar with the work of AFWERX 3.0. And so this is a great opportunity to make it even stronger, to make it even more relevant. So I invite you to join me today as we launch AFWERX 3.0 and help it grow even stronger. So thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you, General Richardson, for your words, for your support, for your leadership from all of us. Much appreciated. The Air Force Research Laboratory is the primary scientific research and development center for the entire Department of the Air Force. It's got a diverse portfolio that ranges all the way from basic fundamental research up to advanced technology development. AFRL is one lab supporting two services, the United States Air Force and the United States Space Force. And AFWERX is a directorate underneath AFRL. So I would like to introduce you to, and let's listen from the commander of AFRL, Major General Heather Pringle.
Welcome, everyone. It's great to be a part of the AFWERX 3.0 rollout. I'm Heather Pringle, the commander of the Air Force Research Lab and Technology Executive Officer. And I'm here to tell you a little about AFWERX's history as part of the Research Lab and where it's going in 2023. Of course, you heard from General Richardson that AFWERX joined the Air Force Research Lab team in 2020, and what an amazing journey it has been. They've grown their personnel over the past couple years from just a handful of folks to well over 200. They've increased their productivity, they've increased their connections with many industries like each and every one of you. They have started the new SpaceWorks arm to support the One Lab, Two Services mantra that is getting after the needs for not only the Air Force, but also for the Space Force. And of course, they've kicked off some really exciting prime events to transition technologies quicker to the warfighter. Two examples really come to mind are Orbital Prime, which is removing debris from low Earth orbit, but also Autonomy Prime, which is to take advantage of the technologies associated with autonomous vehicles, autonomous algorithms, and seeing how we can accelerate those technologies for our warfighters. So it's been a really busy journey, and I really want to give a shout out to Colonel Nate Diller for all his leadership and his work in growing and maturing the AFWERX team, the AFWERX mission, and I'll say that 2.0 has really made a broad impact for our nation. So thank you, Colonel Diller. A couple other accomplishments that I'd like to highlight. You've been under Colonel Diller's leadership, the AFWERX team has brought over 15,000 new small businesses to our department's efforts. He's introduced them to our mission and our ecosystem. In addition, this portfolio has seen a 15-fold increase in follow-on funding. It's not necessarily from the department, but from partners who are joining in and seeing the relevance of what this new model of technology and transition has to offer. And one real exciting accomplishment that I'd like to highlight is the first airman flight in an electric aircraft. That had never been done before, and the fact that this accomplishment happened just earlier this year on 9 March 2022 is really an exciting testament to the success of what AFWERX brings to the warfighter. But of course, as we're moving to 2023 and AFWERX is continuing to mature its model and getting to a 3.0 model, we'll see new improvements that build on this historical foundation between AFWERX and our lab. So I'd first like to welcome Colonel Elliot Lee, he goes by Neo, to the AFWERX team, and he's going to take leadership of this team and really bring it into 2023 with new energy, new excitement, and a whole host of new efforts that are coming along with it. He's got a test and evaluation background as well as program management. So he comes at a perfect time to mature some of these seedling efforts into something that is more sustainable. Things like what we've seen with companies that have brought artificial intelligence to warfighters in a whole host of technology areas, or small businesses that have transitioned additive manufacturing techniques to maintainers on the flight line, or to space applications as well. So as you enjoy today's event to kick off the AFWERX 3.0 effort, I want to say thanks again, Colonel Diller. You've done a remarkable job. Thanks for your 22 years of leadership and service to our department. You can leave confident that you've left our department in good hands, but also you've left it stronger and more innovative and accelerating research in science and technology better than it ever has. And welcome again to Colonel Lee. You're joining a really exciting mission. Hold on to your hat because it's going to be a crazy ride. And to all of you out there who have joined us today, thank you for your time. Thanks for being interested and learning more about what AFWERX 3.0 is going to bring. 2023 is going to be an exciting year, and I hope you enjoy today's event. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, General Pringle, for those comments, and really thank you for everything you've done for AFWERX. You've been a huge champion from the very, very beginning, and we appreciate that. All right, so now we are going to revector, and we're going to go over the different mission areas and the different mission organizations that make up this AFWERX organization. So first up is SpaceWorks. So SpaceWorks is the innovation arm of the U.S. Space Force, and they are a key and vital part of the AFWERX team. So before we hear from Rock again, I'd like you to go ahead and enjoy this introductory video.
Thank you, Sass. So in December 2020, we announced the stand-up of SpaceWorks. We announced this new initiative that was going to fall under the AFWERX team. And shortly after that announcement, my team and I, we set forth in designing how this organization was going to look. This organization was not designed just by my small team, but it was designed with feedback from members throughout the ecosystem, from industry partners, from members in academia, and members within the government. And starting in August 2021, we actually had our official stand-up of SpaceWorks. What we learned during the planning stages of standing up SpaceWorks was that what members in the ecosystem wanted SpaceWorks to do was to be facilitators throughout the ecosystem, to facilitate a platform for innovators to innovate upon. So taking some of the toughest challenges from the Space Force and some of the bright solutions from industry and academia and bringing them all onto a single platform to really get after some of the toughest challenges that faces the Space Force. The Space Force, as the newest military arm, has the challenge of, responding to the emergent threat. Space is no longer a benign environment. So the Space Force is looking to SpaceWorks to begin looking out to industry, particularly startups and small businesses, to begin fielding some of the bright technology that's out there and taking advantage of that technology and bringing it into our space architecture. So the official stand-up of Space Force was also coupled with Space Force Pitch Day. That was our very bold message to the ecosystem that we are here to play. That Space Force Pitch Day was a 2-day event where we awarded 19 contracts for a total of $32 million right off the bat. What an exciting way to start a new organization. Leading up to that pitch day, my SpaceWorks team, what we did was we took some of those bright small businesses, and again, we introduced those bright small businesses to our problem owners within the Space Force, being that facilitator of innovation. And some of our senior acquisitions leaders were able to see at that Space Force Pitch Day event what was within the realm of the possible for technology that's out there in commercial industry to bring into the space architecture. Shortly after Space Pitch Day, we began executing those contract efforts. We began expanding the role of SpaceWorks. Our budget began to increase. It went from a small pot of $30 million to nearly $300 million. That's $300 million that we're pushing out into the ecosystem to get after innovative capability. That was our first iteration of SpaceWorks under AFWERX 2.0. One of the foundational elements of SpaceWorks is that close partnership with the space operator, our guardian. We continue that close partnership with events such as our Reverse Collider event that just happened in April 2022. During that Reverse Collider event, we invited 42 companies to come and sit down with our space operators and hear directly from them what their toughest challenges were. The great thing about that event was we were able to, again, create an innovative platform for innovators to innovate upon. Our space operators were able to see solutions to some of the pain points that they had, and they were able to inform industry of exactly what they can do, the value proposition that they had to offer to them. Shortly after that, those companies, understanding their value proposition, was able to compete for SBIR contract awards. And they were able to immediately begin delivering upon the challenges that our space operators had right away. So that close tie to the space operator continues to be a foundational element of the SpaceWorks organization. The Space Operations Command continue to play an active role in the things that we do day in, day out, and they continue to own a significant portion of our portfolio, and that partnership will continue. One of the bedrock elements of SpaceWorks has always been our accelerator program. Our accelerator programs are executed in conjunction with the Space Vehicles Directorate. Back in November, we took 85 cohort members from our accelerator programs and we brought them back to Albuquerque to check in on them, to see what their experience has been since they've gone through our accelerators. Again, being that facilitator of innovation, we sought to make additional connections for those cohort members, introducing them to private investors, to venture capitalists, introducing them to new customers within the Space Force, offering them resources through the AFRL lab, continuing to champion the efforts that they're doing on behalf of the Space Force, and continue to guide them as they continue to provide solutions to the Space Force's toughest challenges. Now, there is one more initiative that was announced in this first iteration of SpaceWorks, and that was our Orbital Prime program. Orbital Prime was announced in November 2021. And oh my, I'm so amazed at how industry responded. Industry and academia responded to our first call within Orbital Prime. Our first call for a sitter solicitation garnered nearly 300 contract proposals. amazing. Shortly after that, we awarded our SITR Phase 1 contracts, and we began to learn about the mix of technology out there that's getting after active debris remediation. Once we started to take a look at that mix of technology, we took some of those concepts and we began to introduce those concepts to our acquirers, to our operators. And what we found was really what we were getting after with active debris remediation was building the footprint and foundational elements to build a logistics and maintenance capability for the space layer. I can tell you our Guardians are very excited about the mix of technology that they're already seeing. There's tons of excitement behind Orbital Prime. And as General Purdy down in Florida at Patrick Air Force Space Force Base stands up his Assured Access to Space mission area, he's looking at Orbital Prime to really shape how that mission area gets after in-space servicing and manufacturing. All these efforts were started with Orbital Prime. We have a champion and a PEO for Assured Access to Space that is looking closely at Orbital Prime to really shape its mission area and really inform where long-term investment is going to be driven. One of the key lessons we learned from Orbital Prime was if you send out a bold message of what you're looking for, industry is going to respond. Our acquisition leadership is looking at those additional bold messages to send out and leverage SpaceWorks again as that platform for us to innovate upon. So what's next for SpaceWorks? Well, you're going to see more play in our portfolio from our acquisitions leaders. Our material leaders, our senior material leaders are looking to leverage the SITR portfolio to really understand where they need to drive the future of space architecture. And SpaceWorks want to be able to offer up those trades for them. I'm super excited for our latest partnership with the Tactically Responsive Space Program Office. This spring, please look for our solicitation in our standard SITR cycle that focuses on the key elements that Tactically Responsive Space is trying to get after. Like Orbital Prime, we're sending out a very clear, bold message of where we want to drive SITR investment. And Tactically Responsive Space is one of our next mission areas that we're going to begin to focus on. So what can you expect from that call? You can expect us to look for technologies getting after responsive launch, rapid logistics, commercial data services, and then we're also focusing on those key mission areas that's going to really enable tactically responsive space to scale at the pace that they want to go to. So the key mission areas that they're getting after is going to be space domain awareness, space control, SATCOM, tactical ISR. So with that said, just like Orbital Prime, we saw that very bold and great response from industry and academia. We're looking for the same as we transition into this AFWERX 3.0. We're sending a very clear message of our priorities, what we're getting after to align with the SECAF's operational imperatives, and tactically responsive space is that next step that we're taking. So we're being very clear on what we need, and I'm super excited to see how the ecosystem responds. Thank you, Seth.
Oh, hey, thank you, Rock. Seriously, I'm super excited as well. Appreciate you being here today. Always great seeing you. And thank you for what you're doing to help make sure that these bonds between air and space keep getting stronger, because that's where we're headed. So much appreciated. All right. So hey, we're going to now talk about AFVentures. So again, we talked about it before. AFVentures invests in some of these emerging technologies in order to scale them up to Department of the Air Force capabilities. Other things that does is it strengthens our U.S. industrial base. It also incentivizes investment in national security interests. And one of the major focuses of AFVentures, as you heard Rock talk about earlier, is the Department of the Air Force SITR program. So just as a reminder, SITR stands for the Air Force's Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR, and Small Business Technology Transfer, or SITR. So we're going to hear about CyberSitter programs, we're going to hear about AFVentures, we're going to hear about where they're going, and we're going to hear all this from Major Adam Sheridan. But before we do that, enjoy this introduction video for AFVentures.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adam Sheridan. I'm really excited to tell you all about AFVentures, what we do, and the impacts and opportunities that AFWERX 3.0 are going to bring. So with that, let's jump into the slides. As a division of AFWERX, AFVentures manages the Department of the Air Force's CyberSitter program. Like Sass mentioned, CYBR stands for Small Business Innovative Research, and SITR is Small Business Technology Transfer. These are research and development programs that fall under the Small Business Administrations Program, established by Congress in 1982 and 1992. These were established because of the importance of America's small businesses and their crucial impact on the national industrial base. Specifically, this program is here to serve small businesses while also meeting our defense needs. CYBR and SITR are very similar in that they both solicit proposals from small businesses to award funding in order to conduct R&D and meet government needs and missions. The main difference between the two is that SITR requires small businesses to partner with research institutes. And by research institutes, we're talking about universities, federally funded research and development centers, and qualified nonprofits. Both CYBR and SITR have the same program structure, and that's part of a three-phase commercialization program. Phase one is the discovery phase, where we're casting that wide net to identify new technologies and conduct feasibility studies. Then phase two is a prototyping stage, where we take the best ideas and leverage a close collaboration between the small business and a specific Air Force or Space Force organization to develop and test an innovative solution. Finally, phase three, which is the transition stage. And this is where the capability moves from the CyberSitter R&D program directly into the hands of the final customer and end user. Phase threes are a fantastic opportunity because it can leverage and streamline government contracting methods due to competition requirements already being met during phase ones and phase twos. This is incredible for both small businesses and government organizations because it can cut months from the acquisition cycle. On this next slide, we'll talk about how AFVentures applies capital as a capability. We apply an annual CyberSitter budget of over $1 billion per year across three programs. Those three programs are Open Topic, Specific Topic, and StratFi TACFi. With Open Topic, it is truly open, meaning that it's technology and sector agnostic. We're seeking any technology that can potentially meet an Air Force or Space Force need. We're targeting dual-use technologies, meaning that it can be applied in both defense and non-defense markets, which helps our companies ensure long-term economic viability. With an open topic, small businesses can propose any solution utilizing any technology, and then we within AFWERX will evaluate against our defense needs to determine if there's a match. The Department of the Air Force has paved the way with Open Topic and has seen so much success in this program, it's now congressionally mandated that all federal agencies with a CYBR program implement a version of our Open Topic. Now with Specific Topic, the Department of the Air Force has a particular problem set with clearly defined requirements. Now, in this case, we're asking small businesses to propose innovative solutions against these clearly defined requirements, which are often needs unique to the Department of Defense. Specific topic and open topic are used as powerful complements to each other to fulfill both our known needs and our unknown needs. Our last program within CyberSitter is StratFi-TacFi, which stands for Strategic Funding Increase and Tactical Funding Increase. This program is used to scale Phase 2 efforts to achieve better technology transitions through de-risk developments and pairing with multiple transition-focused partners. This program leverages outside investments with both government and non-government matching funds. This next slide illustrates how our program works. Our CyberSitter program is intentionally structured like a funnel, like any good R&D program should be. Like I said earlier, we cast that wide net at Phase 1 to discover as many innovative solutions as possible, and we award roughly 1,000 of these contracts per year. Each contract is typically 3 to 9 months of performance and up to $150,000 per award to complete that feasibility study. After the feasibility studies are complete, we then down select prior to our Phase 2s, which is our prototyping stage. We award roughly 500 of these per year, which includes both the Phase 1 to Phase 2 follow-ons and direct to Phase 2s. These contracts are typically around 2 years and $1.25 million. This again is where the small businesses work closely with Air Force and Space Force organizations to develop and test their innovative solution. We also award roughly 100 TACFIs and 15 StratFIs each year. This program requires matching funds because it's our scaling phase, and it ensures that small businesses are matched adequately to the right government partners to improve the likelihood of a successful scaling and transition. And finally, like I mentioned earlier, Phase 3 is the end goal for our CyberSitter program. This is the final transition from the CYBER program to a government customer. And it uses non-CYBER funding, meaning the CYBER of that government customer. As long as it continues, derives, or extends from that Phase 1 or Phase 2 contract, it can use that streamlined acquisition process we talked about earlier because, again, those competition requirements have already been met. Because of that, Phase 3s are a fantastic opportunity for both companies and our government partners. And we're always looking for ways to spread the word and share resources on Phase 3s. The next few slides will show our schedules and solicitations so small businesses and government partners can better plan and know when to expect CYBER and CIDR opportunities. These are all published on our website, AFWERX.com, and we post them to our social media accounts too. This first calendar is for Open Topic, which has 2 Phase 1s and 2 direct to Phase 2 opportunities per year. These are released evenly throughout the year and also consistently across years. Each of these opportunities begins with a solicitation window, which is where small businesses can submit their proposed solutions. And once that solicitation closes, then it's with AFWERX for our evaluations and internal reviews prior to creating a selection list and ultimately contract awards. We target a 75 to 90-day window between when the solicitation closes and contract award. Our schedule is very consistent, so by keeping an eye on our upcoming solicitations, you'll know what to expect. This next chart is for a specific topic, which has 3 annual releases that generally happen the same time frame every year. This chart shows when our solicitations open and close, which is, again, the window for small businesses to submit their proposals. And it also shows our expected award timelines for each solicitation. We target a 90-day window, and we're mandated to be within 180 days. And again, this is the window from solicitation close to contract award. Similar to Open Topic, you can keep your eye on our schedule to know when opportunities are released and what to expect. The next 2 slides show our current and upcoming solicitations. Specific Topic is colored in black, Open Topic is colored in blue. The Specific Topic had 2 solicitations recently closed. 22.2b, we're expecting contract awards this month, and 22.4d, we're expecting contract awards in August. For Open Topic, we just had a direct to Phase 2 solicitation close a couple weeks ago, a couple days before Thanksgiving, and right now our team's hard at work finishing our internal evaluations and technical reviews prior to making our select list, which we're preparing for contract awards in February. This chart illustrates our next solicitations. For a specific topic, we've got the 23.1A solicitation planned to open in early February, which will close a month later. We've also got 23.3C that's opening in September and closing a month later. For open topic, our next solicitation will be released in roughly 1 month in early January, and that opportunity will remain open for 45 days until the end of February. So for our small businesses, these are the windows for your chances to work with us in the Cyber Sitter program. All right, and this next slide shows the program status for StratFi TechFi. All of our program year 2022 StratFis are currently in board review, which is a detailed evaluation of each capability package completed by a team with a wide range of expertise. We anticipate all select notifications to be released soon after the new year. All right, this next slide is the shortest, but it's actually the one I'm most excited about. AFWERX 3.0 will bring incredible opportunities to the Cyber Sitter program for the Air Force, Space Force, and our small businesses. First, we're adding specific topics that will focus on our operational imperatives, which has massive involvement across our senior leadership. As mentioned earlier, with AFWERX 1.0 and 2.0, we paved the way with a very successful bottoms-up approach, which means our warfighter and our end user could identify their capability needs and directly partner with small businesses to develop, test, and integrate innovative solutions. We continue to have tons of success with this approach, although our projects do too often fail to cross the valley of death because they didn't have the resources and the senior leadership support required for that long-term success. Alternatively, with AFWERX 3.0, we're creating this unique intersection or coalescence of the critical components needed to ensure successful tech transition. This is the merging of senior leader priorities, the needed resources and expertise from program offices, warfighter mission gaps, and ultimately small business innovation. With this merging, by pairing a top-down and bottoms-up approach, we're confident we'll be able to greatly enhance the speed and rigor of our Cyber Sitter program to ultimately transition more capabilities. AFVentures is also continuously working to reduce barriers for entry to small businesses, so it's easier for you to work with us. We're investigating pathways to include classified topics to our program, which will allow us to go after our most challenging problem sets and truly utilize the innovation and dedication from our small businesses where we need it most. Lastly, we're revitalizing our focus areas and matchmaking tools, which we expect to implement in the coming months. This will allow us to better map out Air Force and Space Force capability gaps against the amazing solutions that our small businesses are developing for us. It will streamline the matchmaking between these small businesses and government organizations to ultimately improve the market research efforts needed to increase those Phase 3 opportunities. My last slide highlights some of the successes from AFWERX 1.0 and 2.0. Since the inception of AFWERX, and since AFVentures was established to lead the Cyber Sitter program, we've had remarkable results. Our Phase 3 contracts have increased over 300%. Our small businesses have received nearly $2 billion in follow-on government contracts, and they're growing over twice as fast. And ultimately, our time to award has been cut in half. These are incredible accomplishments that was only made possible by our talented and dedicated team of program managers, scientists and engineers, contracting officers, finance managers, and all of our amazing stakeholders. As 3.0 continues to roll out, we expect to see even better impacts to our Air Force and Space Force and more ways for our small business to get involved. So thank you for the opportunity to discuss AFVentures and the Department of the Air Force's Cyber Sitter program. I look forward to continuing to work with you and our thousands of small businesses and government stakeholders that are leveraging our Cyber Sitter program. So Stas, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Leah. Thanks for the knowledge. Thanks for the insight. Always great to have you here, and we really appreciate it. For those of you out here that didn't know, we've got a team of superstars here in AFWERX, and Adam is no exception. He was our not only our AFWERX Field Grade Officer of the Year for 2021, he was also the Air Force Research Labs Field Grade Officer of the Year for 2021. And on top of that, he was the Air Force Materiel Command's Field Grade Officer of the Year for 2021. So pretty impressive on his behalf, pretty impressive for AFWERX to be able to have talent like that as part of what we do. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And speaking to all of you out there in virtual land, we're about an hour into it. Hope you're having a great time. Keep those questions flowing. We see that you're populating the chat, so please keep doing that. We've got a team on the side that's putting those together, and when we're done here with some of the mission org specific type discussions, we'll be getting to those questions. So keep those coming, and thank you for your participation so far on this event. All right, so if you recall earlier, we talked about how our Spark division, what they really do is they connect those airmen and those guardians to some of the commercial innovators through collaboration, through training, through networking, and it helps us to inspire ideas, and it helps them to cultivate this more creative force from the ground up. And so before I get Colonel Martin Salinas here to talk to you about Spark and a couple special guests that he brought along, I'd like to invite you to sit back and watch this introductory video.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Colonel Martin Salinas with Spark. Today I've got Garrett Custins with me. And Garrett, what was interesting in that last discussion, I heard them talking about bottom-up and top-down innovation. You've been at the epicenter of Spark from the very beginning when our leadership from the Department of the Air Force pointed for the outfield and said, what we really need to do is we really got to find ways to build a culture of innovation, start empowering innovators, again, from that ground up capacity, but also bringing capability from industry with and to our users out there in the field, our operators, and really help us start accelerating results. You and I talk a lot about, it's great to have that. We have over 108 global innovation cells around the world, a lot of supply of great ideas. I think we've done an outstanding job as an Air Force when we built that culture to establish a humongous supply side of great innovation. AFWERX has a really amazing portfolio of capability from the SBIR-SITR approach, and all of that is really important. But I think one of the interesting challenges, we go from 1.0 to today where we are in 2.0, and we think about the future, is essentially that go-to-market strategy. If we imagine that the operational Air Force is that market, that's something you and I have talked a lot about. Tell the audience a little bit about what we're doing right now to start to try to curate and assist that transition.
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit on it. And starting from the beginning, starting with the root cause of the problem, it's really interesting to see where we started, where we're at today, and where we're going. And I think it's a very logical path. So when we first got started, we thought there was a gap. We said, hey, there's a lot of people that are really close to the problem, but might not be involved in the solution. So we said, what might happen if we pull these individuals, pull these young airmen into the decision-making process? And it was really interesting. We started to build Spark cells, just tactical level innovation cells. And they started coming up with a lot of ideas. They pulled a lot of ideas out of these airmen, so then we gave them squadron innovation funds. And those squadron innovation funds turn those ideas into prototypes. And I think that's kind of where we're at today. It's a natural progression. We have a lot of prototypes. We had this large top of funnel, and now we're looking to try to pull these through the funnel. And some of the things we built out to support that, one of our programs is the refinery, which for those in private industry probably very familiar with the concept of an accelerator. This is probably a quasi pre-accelerator or an accelerator, somewhere in between. But the benefit is that we are pulling airmen in that have these projects, and we're really putting them through an entrepreneurial boot camp, testing their hypothesis, helping them talk to customers, trying to scale their product. And it's been wildly successful to date. And the nice thing about that is that you've got this government rep that is trying to scale technology inside while the companies are trying to scale technology outside. And it's for those that don't know, and those that haven't tried to scale technology in the federal government, can be really hard. It can be really hard to navigate, especially for non-traditional companies. It's like, should I do business with the Air Force, maybe the Army? Do I just Google the U.S. Air Force? Like, where do I start? And I would say that having a really strong government customer, whether it's a technical point of contact or a core on a contract, I'm sorry for the acronyms, if you have that solid government rep, they can help get you to places and they can help you navigate this space that can be really challenging for small businesses to really break into. So I'm excited about where we're at, excited about where we're going, and really excited to, as these grassroots projects come up, really tie them to the strategic imperatives and, get that top-down, the grassroots projects coming up, supported by the top-down effort, the strategic efforts, and really just helping to scale and transition projects.
Yeah, I think that's outstanding. You go back to the power I think that Spark brings between both SpaceWorks and AFWERX is that connection to the people, to those operators. That's a humongous market now available to our industry partners who can get involved, get connected. I think demystify also that go-to-market strategy with the U.S. government. And we're really focused on it. I think that's where we're going here in the near future. The idea of bringing those capabilities, again, from market, even from our own entrepreneurs within the Air Force. But the key is getting those into the hands of our operators and that operational mission. We're very focused there. And actually, one of our own is actually right now out in one of the areas of responsibility and sent us a note I think we'd like to share with the audience. So one of our own is Berenice Mondragon. Let's hear from her.
Hi everyone, I'm Berenice Mondragon, also known as V. So for those who haven't met me virtually in the past, y'all know that I'm a proud Texan and I always have my giant Texas flag in the background. However, today I'm not calling in from home out of Austin, Texas. I'm calling in straight from the 22nd Expeditionary Combat Weather Squadron, where I'm currently deployed as a Texas Air National Guard member from the 209th Weather Flight. So when I'm not operating in a uniform capacity for deployments or state missions, I serve as an Air Force civilian out of the AFWERX Spark Hub in downtown Austin, where I connect with small businesses within our thriving tech community to help drive innovation for our Airmen and Guardians. I've also developed and led engagements with our Air Force major commands to enable collaboration and new avenues for operational connection with service-center companies within our AFWERX portfolio. And although technically I'm not currently serving in an AFWERX capacity, it has been great to see how supportive AFCENT has been towards enabling innovation in this theater. And I've been proud to continue to support Air Force innovation efforts while deployed. So a big shout out to the Marauder innovation team out of the 386 Air Expeditionary Wing. And I can't wait to get back home, enjoy some Texas barbecue, and see what's next as we transition into AFWERX 3.0 out here.
How awesome is that to hear from our very own, out in the area of responsibility, connected with that operational mission, really thinking about innovation in that context. And Ms. Berenice, we can't wait to get you back home to Texas and some of that good Texas barbecue. But as we've mentioned before, this is 2 services, 1 lab, 1 works. Right now I've got Captain Swall with me here from SpaceWorks and the Space Force. A lot of folks ask me, they'll say, hey, you're at AFWERX, you're in the Air Force. What's that relationship with SpaceWorks? And I try to make sure they understand that we are working together as a department, getting that innovation done, and thinking about a lot of the same things. I think it'd be interesting, you do a lot of things with Spark from a SpaceWorks and a Space Force perspective. I think the audience would be really interested to hear about what is your approach to that, and maybe understanding a little bit about the structure of how you connect with your end user and those space operators out at those deltas.
Yes, sir. So to echo the mission, and before we explain what that mission is, I think it's important to explain a few key terms that we use in the Space Force. The first one is a space delta, very similar in rank and structure to an Air Force wing. However, it's more mission area focused. For instance, if you hear Space Delta II, it immediately pops in your mind, that's space domain awareness, right? So the second term that we use a lot is CDT, which means combat development teams, or even more recently, capability development teams. And what that is, embedded within each Delta, we have mission experts who understand what those problems are. And they go out into their respective fields, source those problems, and work closely with us at Spark to help curate those problems. And by curating those problems, we can find out, is this a cyber solution? Is this something that we can take to industry? So on the flip side of that coin, when we are engaging with industry, we have the latest and greatest. We have our thumb on the pulse of what our warfighters are really looking for. So when we do that engagement, they're getting, the latest information, as well as that helps us to find those exciting new ideas that might fit a problem that a mission area has out there, as well as, potentially that 80% solution that already commercially exists that we can vector. So when you bring those two together, what really happens is you deliver capabilities to our warfighters at operationally relevant speeds, just really, really fast and with significant return on investment. So that's our mission at SpaceWorks Spark. Again, it's very similar, just different terminology, but the end goal is the same, and that's empowering our Guardians to do that innovation through the cyber pipeline.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think thinking about the fact that we heard from essentially your boss, Colonel Rock McMillan a little earlier, and the amazing amount of acceleration that we've seen, the engagement with the small, I would say a small space industry to bring them in, try to continue to demystify their ability to do business with the Department of the Air Force has been really interesting. I think you guys are doing some outstanding work. And I think that having access to those space operators out there, the Space Force, the talent that exists within your organization is absolutely key. I mean, another huge market I think that exists out there, and super very interesting. So, again, thanks for a lot of that work. Glad to work with all of you in this space, or in the innovation space, and good job what you guys are doing out there. So, yeah, that's everything that we have going on right now. So, two services. One works, but also just getting after some operational execution into the future, into 3.0, taking those capabilities, putting them into our end users' hands, opening up those grand markets for our small business partners. And with that, Sass, we look forward again to moving into the future here.
Outstanding. No, thank you. Seriously, always great to talk to you.
Yeah.
Always get super pumped and super excited whenever Spark is around and chatting with us. So thanks to you, thanks to your guests, and big shout out to V out there. And hope she gets back here soon as well. So outstanding. All right, so we heard about technology, right, on the AFVentures side. We just heard about talent on the Spark side. So now we're going to talk about transition, and that is the prime side. And so this prime division of ours in AFWERX, their goal is to identify and accelerate those emerging commercial markets, and specifically the ones that match with our military interests. And what that allows us to do is not just benefit the commercial industrial base, but it also gets the military capabilities through integration with some of these dual use technologies that are out there. And so what I'm going to do is have Lieutenant Colonel Tom Maher introduce Prime and talk to you about that. But before he gets on stage, check out this awesome video.
All right, so hey, it was great to see that video, what's going on with Prime, what we have upcoming. So I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tom Maher, I run the Prime programs for AFWERX. I'm excited to talk to everybody today about where we've been, what we've been doing, why we're doing it, and where we're going next. So to kind of kick things off, I'll bring up a few charts showing, hey, what is our mission? What is our structure? What is our strategy? Why are we doing what we're doing? And so you can see the mission there. So we're looking to expand technology transition paths to accelerate those emerging tech markets. And how we're doing that is use our government resources, use the tools that we have within the DoD to move along that rapid and affordable fielding. And really importantly, we are trying to attract and optimize that external funding and talent. If you look at what's been out there in industry where all the commercial research and development dollars have been going, there are a lot of areas that have good overlaps with mission needs and things that the DoD can utilize. So we're trying to find those synergies and find those areas of overlap to stimulate those markets and really accelerate them on the commercial side and also on the dual use side for how we can use them within the DoD. And so how we've set that up is, what is our strategy? So we want to do accelerated learning with industry. We talk about collaborative risk reduction to field those capabilities. And we look at a few different areas. From that collaborative risk reduction, we're thinking about technical, regulatory, and financial risks. So all the things that commercial industry is looking at, how we can provide some of our DoD resources to help move them along. So if you look at the tool set that Air Force Material Command has, we have a lot of things in our tool set we can help address those specific areas. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, how we've structured that with some of our current programs with Agility Prime, and then possibly how we'll do that moving forward as well. What's really important, that kind of second part, is there is a significant wealth of talent that's out there that has overlap with the Department of the Air Force challenges. And so if we curate those problems correctly, that matches up with what they're doing in industry, we can really work together to try to find some collaborative solutions. And then finally, we actively go out and we seek those diverse partnerships. So if we look at how we're going to get some of the commercial capabilities and dual use capabilities out there, working with our interagency partners, working with areas that need to create adoption of that emerging tech, it's critical for us to help engage on those areas so we can move along those sectors. And so what does this mean? What are these diverse partnerships we're talking about? It's all the things that you see listed there. So first of all, talking to industry, see where they're putting their research and development, see where they see opportunities on the dual use space, both from a DoD perspective, from a business aspect, as well as on the commercial side. Where is the investment dollars going? Where are the both private capital, venture capital, and others? Where are they putting their money? Where do they see overlap and interest from the DoD side? Where are we signaling that we're interested in? And where are they seeing that there's really good opportunities and growth? I talked about the interagency. So if we look at examples of Agility Prime, the key for advanced air mobility is working with the FAA and NASA so that they can get to those commercial certifications. They can work early with NASA on some of that tech development. If you look at, say, the drone industry or others that have been trying to get the emerging tech out there, building those partnerships with state and local is really critical because that's where we're going to start to see this tech initially adopted. And getting those folks on board is critical to opening up those initial markets. International, what do we mean by that? Just like we've seen in the National Defense Strategy, we're going to be partnering with our allies. And that's how we go to fight. That's how we need to start developing technology. And so signaling where we're looking at from a technology perspective, from an investment perspective, and working with our allies and partners is key to making these things work. And then finally, that you see kind of similar that you'll work with on a normal acquisition. So we're talking to the laboratory. So that's really offering some of those in-kind testing opportunities, that technical expertise to move some of this technology along. Working with the acquisition community. At the end of the day, we have to be able to work to get these into programs and fielded capabilities, and that's working with our acquisition professionals to do just that. And then finally, and certainly it cannot be left out, is it has to meet an operational need. So that's talking to our warfighters. You just heard from our Spark division of how do we get that demand signal from what those operational needs are, and how do we start to focus our efforts on emerging tech towards that end. I think what you'll see as we continue to progress on the Prime model is that we looked at what's happened in the National Defense Strategy. So they called out a few very specific things. So how does the DoD incorporate emerging tech in the commercial and military sectors? And how do we become a fast follower where market forces are driving certain commercialization of military relevant capabilities? How do we harness that? And so we look to continue to do that down. So what I want to talk about is a little more of, hey, what are the examples of these partnerships? You see all the ones there. I mean, that's just a sliver of what we've started to branch out to, but you see all the services represented. So when we branched out for Agility Prime, when we start to announce some of these upcoming initiatives and Prime programs, we do look to all the other services to see, hey, where is there overlap from a tech interest? Where can we help build those relationships? And the top part is some of those interagency examples. Some from our Agility Prime, some from our Orbital Prime piece, but significant overlap and significant reach across the government to help move these emerging tech sectors along. So now what I'd like to talk a little bit about is, hey, how did we start this? Our first program was Agility Prime, and that really started the model for the AFWERX Prime division. So we looked at, there was a significant amount of money and investment and interest going into the advanced air mobility sector. So hybrid and electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. You've seen a lot come out over the last few years, significant amount of capital going into it, significant amount of innovation in this new age and this new sector of aviation. And so we'll talk a little bit about kind of the journey that we've been along. We saw great tech progression, which really has three different kind of technology areas that we've been looking at. So you've got distributed electric propulsion, and that has been enabled significantly by what's happening in the auto industry. You have increased automation and autonomy that will enable larger operations at scale. And then finally, really interesting is if you look at how do we get to that scale, it really requires novel manufacturing capabilities and techniques to operate and get a large number of vehicles to get to those economies of scale that we're looking at for advanced air mobility. So we'll walk through a few different examples of, hey, what do we do on this program up to this point? Where are we going next? Just to get an idea of what we've been up to. So we started working with some of the initial companies just as they're operating and doing some of their commercial operations, their commercial development. And we took a stepped approach to say, hey, we want to work with the companies and see where the tech is developing. And then next we want to get our operators in there. So out in December of 2021, this was the first time that we had one of our operators go out and do evaluations for remote operations. So you see there, one of our folks, Captain Terrence McKenna, operating the Kitty Hawk aircraft remotely. So we went through training that we helped develop with Air Education and Training Command, Detachment 62 that's partnered with our program to help develop those operations and those training pieces so we know how to operate some of this emerging tech and we know how to train some of our operators. So we went on to achieve that in December of 2021. The next kind of step was, hey, how do we actually get some of our folks in these aircraft? How do we get them evaluating? So out in March, we've been working with Beta Technologies that you see there, and we got the 413 Flight Test Squadron pilot. So we had an extending relationship throughout Air Force Test Center and these companies to get some of our test pilots out to do some of the initial evaluations of not only providing feedback to the companies, but also giving us an early insight, early look on how we operate this new class of vehicles. And so that was a great achievement for us. We took a lot of the lessons learned. We went through the airworthiness processes to get these things approved, all the requisite technical and safety reviews, and really move forward on a program of, hey, that's our initial milestone. And what we saw from this, I talked about those partnerships and the key that those hold. And so we've been working with the Army quite a bit on the program, and they saw this. And so we moved out in the summer, and what you see there in July of 2022, this is the first Army aviator in an electric aircraft. And this was a really important step for our program because we used the lessons learned. We shared the work that we'd done from a technical perspective, from an airworthiness perspective, so we don't have to go reuse and redo all these processes necessarily throughout the government. We're sharing those lessons learned. We're sharing the data, not only with our multi-service, but also like I talked about with the FAA and NASA. So a big moment as we expand out our multi-service operations. And then recently what we saw is, all right, we've done some of these single evaluations, we've gotten some initial qualifications, but how do we kind of expand this out? So what you see here is, this was out from back in November, so just last month, we had our first 3 airmen certified to actually do remote operations. So not just a single qual eval, but actually certified to do some of these test operations and continually operating them. So you see this down in Florida, out at Eglin Air Force Base, operating the LIF Hexa. We had 3 different operators from different backgrounds, both officer and enlisted, get qualified. And so that's just some of the things that we've seen on Agility Prime. And so what we're looking at next is going forward and getting more of these vehicles out on our military installations so we can continue to put them through the paces, continue working with industry where there's value added for them and value added for the DoD to assess where this emerging technology can best be utilized. So that's Agility Prime. So what else are we doing next? What does 3.0 look like from an AFWERX Prime perspective? You heard earlier from our space counterparts, from Rock, as he described Orbital Prime and the great work that's been doing there. So we collaborate on the model through the Air Force and Space Force and how we identify those tech sectors. So Orbital Prime will continue on as we expand that program out, really looking for continued access to space. Recently, we announced we had a request for information that went out to industry on autonomy. So if you look at some of the sectors that industry has really put large amounts of investment in dollars in, it's different automated capabilities, it's different applications of autonomy. And so at this point, what we've done is we've gone out and said, hey, industry, what interests you? Where are there overlaps for how we can help accelerate that development? And so at the same time, we're going back and seeing, hey, where are the areas of overlap with the Department of the Air Force needs, so we can help shape that program to meet both industry and the Department of the Air Force's needs as we do that collaborative risk reduction, that collaborative learning. So we're excited to move forward with that effort. Look for more on the horizon over the next year as we build out that program. I think what you'll see as we move forward, like we've talked about in many different instances, is how do we shape the programs to make sure we're finding the tech that the Department of the Air Force and the operational imperatives need, and then also overlaps with where the investment and interest is on the commercial sector. So we're excited to partner with industry on that. We're excited to go through that collaborative learning environment and really help accelerate across not only with industry, but also across the divisions within AFWERX. So that's really what 3.0 is about, is getting those synergies from those AFVentures tools, and gaining the warfighter input and needs from that Spark component, and then building them out with industry on those emerging tech sectors. So I'm excited for what is in store for 3.0. I'm excited where we've been and excited where we're going. So with that, Sass, I think I'll hand it back over to you. I really appreciate the time. Be talking about what AFWERX Prime is up to and what we're going to be doing. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. You're excited. I'm excited too. And I'm excited to see what Prime is going to launch off to here this next year. I'm excited to see these vehicles flying around on military bases, and quite honestly, flying around on the commercial sector as well. So that'll be a great time. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
All right. So we talked about SpaceWorks. Right? We talked about technology and AFVentures. We talked about talent with Spark. You just heard about transition with Prime, right? So those are our major mission areas within AFWERX. But underpinning all of that are our functional support teams. These teams of ours, these functional support teams, they're second to none, and they have to be second to none because they're dealing with this unique and non-traditional activities that are taking place all throughout AFWERX. So I'd like to highlight a couple of them. Just a couple to show you kind of some of the unique things that are taking place from a functional support perspective here in AFWERX, and recognizing that a lot of things that are going on here can be scaled out maybe to the rest of the Air Force, the rest of the Department of Defense. So I want to start out with our contracting office, and it's led by someone with incredible experience. Most recently came from both the Rapid Capabilities Office as well as the F-35 Joint Program Office. I'd like to introduce to you our AFWERX Chief of the Contracting Office, Mr. Yosef Hassan. Welcome.
Thank you, Sass. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here.
So on the contracting front, we are extremely excited to support the AFWERX 3.0 rollout and all of the activities associated with it. But many of you might be asking, what does that specifically look like on the contracting front? And the first way I would answer that is we plan on executing a lot of those things that we've been doing well up to this point and continuing it. One aspect that we're most known for is our contracting sprint process. And this is where we take our core AFWERX team and we partner with augmentees, contracting professionals from across the Department of the Air Force. We get them together and we execute hundreds of contracts for SBIRs and SITRs, phase 1s and or phase 2s, and we execute them in a concentrated 2-week time frame. But in order to do this effectively, we have to lay the groundwork ahead of time. We have to work with our top-notch financial managers, our technical evaluators who evaluate the proposals, so that when our contracting teams and our augmentees come to this contracting sprint, they're well poised to execute contract awards within that 2-week period. So we plan on continuing these activities going into AFWERX 3.0. Up to this point, our contracting team has executed 16 contracting sprints over the past couple years, which has translated to roughly around 4,000 contracts going to small businesses, many of which haven't done business with the Department of Defense before. So there's a lot of success stories there. And we plan on continuing to look for process improvements within our contracting sprint process, continuing to use software automation, continuing to use templates as much as possible or practicable, and also reducing manual repetitive inputs. The second thing that we plan on continuing in AFWERX 3.0 is hiring. In calendar year 2022, we had a lot of success with hiring. Specifically, we were able to grow our contracting team by roughly 80%. A big part of that was the hiring fair that took place in the March timeframe earlier this year. That was a factor, as well as remote telework and some of the flexibilities that our leadership afforded us in AFWERX. One aspect that we really were looking for is a diverse contracting workforce, because in this innovation space, we wanted people that were able to have that dialogue about different ways to do contracting and look for articulate ways to potentially improve the process. So we were really able to capture top-tier talent in calendar year 2022 and bring on people from upwards of 15 different states to join the AFWERX contracting team. In 2023, as we continue to roll out AFWERX 3.0, we anticipate this hiring to continue. We see increasing requirements for Spark, Prime, as well as a growing AFVentures portfolio. So we look forward to continuing to search for that strong contracting talent from very diverse backgrounds. The third aspect of AFWERX 3.0 that we plan on supporting is continuing to build those relationships. One great example that I can pull from our last contracting sprint, normally we execute our sprints with our core contracting team as well as Department of the Air Force personnel. But in this last sprint, we were also able to bring in Army augmentees, and we were able to show them how we're executing our open topic contract awards quickly and effectively within this contracting sprint process. We really want to continue this collaboration in different ways going into AFWERX 3.0 and looking for ways to continue that dialogue while executing effectively. But we also want to learn from other organizations. What are the challenges that they're facing with dual-use technologies, working with small business contractors, and how does that interface and play within the classified domain? So we look forward to having those conversations with across the Department of Defense as well as other innovative organizations. And last but not least, I would say that we want to continue looking at our contracting tools. Here in AFWERX contracting, we've been able to really use a lot of flexible contracting approaches. This has come in the form of commercial solutions openings, broad agency announcements, and other transactions. But we see additional requirements coming down the pike for 3.0. So we want to continue using these flexible contract vehicles, but in different ways. But we also want to explore other contracting vehicles, such as CRADAs and innovative solutions openings, and so forth and so on. So in summary, for AFWERX 3.0, how that impacts our contracting organization, we really want to leverage and continue doing those things that we have done well in AFWERX 2.0, but we want to expound upon that. We want to continue growing, we want to continue dialoguing with other organizations and maximizing the use of the tools in our contracting toolbox. It's exciting times in AFWERX. We look forward to partnering with Airmen, Guardians, as well as our contractor teams to execute the 3.0 requirements. So with that said, thank you all for your time, and Sass, back over to you.
Outstanding. Yeah, thanks, Joseph, for being here. Again, just love to see what you and the team are doing. And I appreciate, too, the words on innovation when it comes to new processes, right? A lot of times, when, for the audience, when we hear about innovation, right, immediately we think about technology or new ways of doing things from a technology perspective. But quite honestly, just as importantly, is using some of these innovation tools and techniques to help us out when it comes to processes or when it comes to the bureaucracy, right, or the red tape, or just to make things go faster and better and more disciplined. So I appreciate what you're doing. You've had a fantastic year and looking forward to the year that you and your team are going to have in 2023. So thanks.
Thank you.
So working hand in hand with Joseph and that contracting team are our high-performing and award-winning financial management professionals. And I mean it when I say high-performing and award-winning. In fact, for the last 2 fiscal years, this financial management team has closed out their $1 billion+ budget to the penny. So let me say that one more time, because it's important. The last 2 fiscal years, this team has closed out their budget of over $1 billion to the penny. So that's a high-performing team by definition, right? And a high-performing team is led by a high-performing leader, and we are very lucky here in AFWERX to have a high-performing leader leading up that team, Miss Sarah French. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Yes, it's great to be here, Sass. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. And you're right, it's all about the team. And I am so just thankful to be leading them. And when I thought through, what does, AFWERX 3.0 look like, and what does this launch mean for us? And really, you hit it right on the head. I mean, it's the team. It's all about the people. So for FM, it is all about our people, innovation, and connection. And being the very first financial manager within AFWERX, watching it from infancy to now, today with this launch of 3.0, it has been rewarding seeing all of the individual growth that we've seen, the organizational growth, and the impact to the United States, our warfighter, through all of this innovation that we've seen. And truly looking at how does that go forward and how we press forward with that and push for that in the future with financial management does begin with our team. And so, fighting for the right talent, making sure that we're rewarding, equipping, leading them to be those future thought leaders, investing in those people. AFWERX 3.0 really allows us to grow from that chaos of infancy to now maturing into that investment and change. So, that is a big piece of where we're going. And innovation, you mentioned immediately before this with my, peer, the chief of the contracting office. Oftentimes you think about innovation, you think about engineers and all these small businesses and startups. And I think about finance. So, it's not limited to, those things. I mean, within financial management, we have innovated and changed the way that the government does financial management. And we truly have. We accomplish things that we have never seen before, and executing, $1 billion+ to the penny. When you're centrally managing thousands of awards across, the United States, and is just unbelievable. And it's not with a massive amount of people, it's with process improvements and developing those tools and bots and automation to get that done and get that accomplished, and fueling all of those small businesses. And really this 3.0 is aligning all of those funding opportunities and growing those funding opportunities with all of our OIs, and focusing on the Department of the Air Force, what are those strategic goals and those operational imperatives are, and aligning it. And then connecting. So all of the different efforts that we accomplish within AFWERX. Looking at our multiple program elements that we're managing and folding in Prime, folding in our Prime program element under our financial management portfolio and managing that centrally in-house as well, to make all of those connections through, connecting all those innovators across government and industry and academia, and really at that speed that is required. Breaking ground in new areas and removing bureaucracy, removing barriers, and getting into classified areas is really something that we are going after in financial management to support and connect this overall 3.0 AFWERX view and path that we're down. truly, it's astounding to see all of these small dollars that sometimes we think of a $25,000 award being so minuscule, but those $25,000 awards and many times have led to what are now unicorn companies. And so, you know, investing in those small businesses and technologies that have now changed the way so many things are accomplished is truly something amazing to be a part of. And so, you know, as we move forward and press, you know, my team, their innovative mindset continues. So as we mature, you know, we continue to fuel the machine. We look forward to closing out at, you know, 0 again, and we will continue to deliver speed with discipline. We'll account for every penny, and, you know, truly, I mean, we take this. We are excited to be here. We take this so seriously because we are the stewards of your dollars. And, you know, we will continue on that path.
Awesome. Well, great.
Thank you so much,
No,
Sass.
thank you, Sarah. Pleasure having you here as always. And yeah, looking forward to incredible times ahead here in 2023.
Yes.
You know, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I saved our AFWERX operations division to the end. Not because it's the least important, but because it's really the foundation that supports every other AFWERX area that you've already heard about today. So without this well-tuned operations division, we'd really just would be kind of slogging along, really not able to make it to our full potential. So this team, right, this operations team, it uncovers new ways, right, to innovate, new ways to improve processes. And then not only does it identify those and implement those, but it feeds those back up through the system so that other entities within the research lab and other entities within the Air Force and the Space Force can benefit from some of those same initiatives that they've uncovered. AFWERX has seen some amazing growth here over this past year. And so that growth, as well as this operations team, have been led by Dr. Sean Gibbons. Dr. Gibbons, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Sass. And really, thank you for this opportunity for us to be able to talk about the AFWERX enterprise from the operations perspective. I mean, everybody, you've seen all the good work all the other teams are doing, which is amazing. And we really get excited about empowering that. And really our focus, I mean, our simple mantra is enabling innovators to enable innovators. But really what that boils down to is enabling the AFWERX workforce to be able to enable the greater innovation ecosystem. And we do that by providing facilities and human resource management all the way through Google Cloud Platform and CRM tools. So really whatever we need to be agile, we get ahead of it to be able to support this workforce. Because this is foundational. If we can't do our job, we can't move the needle. So we were established back in 2021, and it was really more towards the middle of the year, but really this last year has been crazy busy as we start talking about things that are changing. And one of the things that we're really excited about is how we have developed our own organic HR capability in AFWERX. And that's where you really start to see us build out that team. And we've been able to leverage not only the internal tools that we're building, but then also as we work with AFMC and AFRL, we had the first ever AFWERX hiring sprint. Everybody talks about building out the team. And really, in just a short period of time, we received over 800 applications as we put the word out. And we were able to have over 100 interviews in the course of 3 days. And in that process, we expanded our civilian workforce by over 50%. Not too many organizations can claim that. So again, big props to what we've been able to do internally, but really this is what's moving us to be able to achieve that 3.0 vision and move towards FOC. And we're going to continue to leverage our AFRL partners and really across the entire ecosystem be able to build this out. And you'll start to see that as we move over to where we're postured across the globe. I mean, really, this is it. Our teams are building this. And our goal is to get the right talent at the right time, at the right place. We are going to where innovation is happening. And this shows it. Not only do we have people everywhere, we are everywhere, but we have facilities that are the front door, which are our hubs as we reach out into that ecosystem. Then we also have our sites, which are really focused on existing partners and our corporate capabilities, but we're building it out in an agile way. And as we look towards 3.0, we want to go further with this. We want to be able to have a dynamic posture to be able to adapt. We don't want to just stay with one spot. We are going to go where this is happening, and we're going to make this better. And because of this, we have to work across multiple domains. And you'll see it. Traditionally, if you're with the Department of Defense, a lot of times you're working inside of the NIPR space. We work everywhere, because we have to connect the Department of Defense with commercial industry. So we're leveraging all the way from your NIPR side, your DREN, your AFNet, out through the Google space. We will find a way to connect. And that's what we have here. And while we work in this ecosystem, we are getting after the big data problem. We're leveraging not only Google Cloud Platform, but also different CRM tools, because we need to be able to bring all this data together, plug into the greater, again, ecosystem, and be able to actually apply analytics in a smart and meaningful way to drive our processes. And we'll continue to build that out. And I'm really excited where we're going to go with 3.0. Then what we've done also is we've turned the paradigm around. With the AFWERX Challenge, we're not waiting for commercial industry to come to us when we have a problem. We have problems now. The operational imperatives across the entire force. And even if it's just, we're just looking out to every warfighter. And what we do is we take those problems and we reach out to commercial industry. We crowdsource solutions. And in a second spiral, we go, hey, what are our most impactful problems that we're finding? And we invite them to come back and pitch it to us. And then we turn around, we narrow down that scope, and we award contracts. And we have been extraordinarily successful with this, and it's getting better. You're talking a turnaround from once we've selected those contracts to getting on an award 12 weeks, which it's not just us. We're being empowered by everybody you've seen here. This is a connective tissue, 12 weeks. That's amazing. We've had 36 challenges since 2018, over 6,000 solutions submitted, and over $72 million in awards. And it continues to grow. And we're going to plug this in, and we're going to continue, especially as we start talking about AFWERX 3.0. We want to be there and provide solutions for the team. And whatever that looks like, we're going to provide it. And again, thank you so much for letting us talk a little bit about operations.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for being here to talk about operations. And more importantly, thank you for what you and your operations team are doing, right? As we grow this team up and as we pivot over to an AFWERX 3.0 and we vector ahead, exciting times, crazy times, but again, so excited that you are here and helping to lead that team up. So,
thanks, sir.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to go over to some questions and answers in just a minute. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch a video, just kind of summarize a little bit of what you heard. And then I'm going to go pull back Colonel Diller. I'm going to pull back Colonel Lee. I'm going to pull back Colonel McMillan. And then I'm going to have them all here for you to answer your questions. We've been monitoring the chat. We've been trying to take a lot of the questions and put them into themes so that we can get to hopefully quite a few of them. So thank you so far for what you're doing, for your participation, for watching, for being a part of this event. I'm going to break for about 90 seconds for the summary video, and then we will be back for questions and answers.
Military and the private sector, all of us working together to build a better future.
You know, traditionally the idea is the Air Force, you know, DoD brings money and we buy something, and that's our value proposition. I think we have a different approach here with AFWERX, where we have a partnership so that it's not several years of maturing technology, but together you're creating that market at the same time that you're creating the technology. AFWERX should be a fantastic partner to anyone who is interested in contributing to the national security of our country, of creating great things.
We can all contribute to make our Air Force better.
In our world, we don't have to have everything completely planned out to know exactly how it's going to end. Let's try it and see where it goes.
If you have an idea or a concept in industry and you want to pitch the Air Force on how that idea can impact our missions, can make national defense stronger, better, we are the place for you to come pitch your idea.
We really want to empower that entrepreneur out there to get on the AFWERX team. We want to get on the entrepreneurs team. Again, that partnership, that teamwork, that is what we are trying to create.
Showing people
that they can have an effect on the missions and the people around them is probably one of our most compelling value statements.
Excellent. Well, I hope you got to hear from all of our experts that the people who are really making this innovation organization continue to really exceed expectations in so many different ways. Our team who has been able to, in ventures, really create an entirely new open door across the Department of Defense, bringing in over 80% of the small businesses with venture backing for the entire Department of Defense. And so I think as you look at what Ventures has done, as you look at the connectivity to the startups, when you look in particular at some of the statistics of the amount of venture capital that is moved into aerospace defense, we see this as an incredible opportunity to collaborate and bring in a whole new set of companies with an entirely different DNA. But we also see that as a close collaboration. One of the things that I think is important to understand with Ventures, for $325 million of our large defense contractor funding has gone towards many of these companies that Ventures has been funding. And so that collaboration, when we look and zoom back just a little bit at why we're doing this, the strategic context, it's very clear from our Secretary of the Air Force that there is a critical need to think differently about this global competition. It's stated very clearly in our national defense strategy. And I don't think it could be articulated any better than by our own Chief of Staff of the Air Force, who says we must accelerate change or lose. And the key to being able to do that is to be able to create this whole of nation effort, this ability to tap into those innovative companies and creating that innovative technology that you saw in Ventures, being able to move quickly and turn those technologies into capabilities through the concepts that our Spark team, through the Airmen and Guardian innovation, has been able to tap into, and then being able to then rapidly turn those into fielded capabilities through Prime. I've got to again reiterate my thanks for the engine that really makes that sequence happen, and it is our contracting officers. When we talk about this innovation, being very clear, it's not just looking at the next shiny thing, but we really are keen on thinking differently about reestablishing structures, reestablishing processes. And you got to hear from Sarah and the amazing innovations that her team has brought forward in being able to quickly move $1 billion a year out to hundreds of companies, of Yosef, who's been able to not just award the contracts, but be able to manage those contracts. And then with Sean in our operations division, the work that he does to be able to have productions like this, to be able to have the 21st century data and infrastructure that's necessary to manage that many stakeholders. So first and foremost, I have to have huge thanks to the team that's put this together, and excited now. Again, the success that we've had has been our opportunity to get feedback from all of you. So we're going to jump into the questions now and hand it over to Colonel Lee as we start to go into those questions. Neil, big picture reactions. We've been monitoring closely the feeds that are out there, and we really want to make sure that we are hearing those questions that are out there, being able to respond to those questions. So please keep them coming as we're going along, and we'll work off those themes, off those questions. Neil, tell us what you saw out there.
Yeah, thanks so much. And just a couple thoughts here. I mean, you hit it, accelerate change or lose. And this is how we do it. So watching private sector R&D, it's going so fast. There are so many innovative ideas out there. And we've really found something here that works. And our ability to get to those companies, to get a solicitation out, to get ideas moving quickly, and to transition when we can, it's being very effective. And so we're going to build on that. We're going to grow this organization into a full-up directorate so that we can execute that even better. Before we jump in here, Rock, I wanted to give you an opportunity as well. What do you think?
Oh, super excited. You heard from the wider team. You heard about the great work that our finance, our contracting, our operations shop is doing. You heard about some of the great work that we've seen out of Ventures. Ventures continue to be a bedrock of the AFWERX organization and will continue to be. You heard about the talent the access to talent that we're seeing through Spark. And then Prime with its transition elements, I mean, it's just amazing what we've seen out of Agility Prime, what we've seen out of Orbital Prime. Of course, I'm going to be biased for Orbital Prime, but the future Prime initiatives is coming down the pipeline. Come on, Autonomy Prime. How can we not be excited about Autonomy Prime? So great day, great event. Super excited for 3.0. I mean, this is going to be, you know, an exciting upcoming year.
Great. Well, Sass, tell us what kind of questions are you seeing out there?
Well, yeah. So let me tell you some of the major themes I'm seeing, right? Then we'll jump into some of them, right? So a lot of talk about scaling. A lot of talk about what kind of joint activities are going on. What are some examples of successes? Maybe a little bit about talent and capital, and then again maybe getting a little bit more into some of the specifics in each of the organizations, whether it's DevSecOps, whether it's things to do with Agility Prime or Future Primes, or some of the other SpaceWorks type things. So why don't we jump into it here? Maybe for Colonel Lee. What do you think? Here's a question: are there other Prime programs in development? Right, we've talked a lot about Agility Prime, talked a lot about Orbital Prime. There seems to be a lot of questions out there, both in the chat, but really just out in the in the general ecosystem about well, what's next? What are some other type of Prime activities that are going to be going on, and maybe touch on the Prime vision as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you heard a little bit about Autonomy Prime, and the key here is, the primes they exist for a reason, and we're looking forward into the future, and we're looking for these potential game changers out there. These are technologies that are already in work in the commercial sector that, if we can accelerate them, will have pretty big effects for the Air Force and the Space Force. And so it started with agility. We took a look at eVTOLs. Who would have thought that we would have airmen flying electric aircraft so quickly? And the way we enabled that was by going out to the companies, opening up the air race, allowing vendors to bring in what they had, and then we partnered with the FAA, we partnered with our own airworthiness within the Air Force offices. We opened up the access to our ranges to do testing, and all of that activity allowed companies to bring assets in and accelerate the technology. We did that again. I've had the opportunity over a couple of months to travel around to a lot of these sites and talk to some of the companies and the work that we're doing. And another example, I know that it's not necessarily part of Orbital Prime, but if you look at some of the launch companies that we have out there, just through the Ventures program, going to a company that has a novel idea and being able to provide some funding so that they can execute and do work that they may not have been able to do otherwise without that funding, and then seeing how that brings additional private capital to allow them to accelerate. There are some technologies out there that are probably 3 to 5 years earlier to test than they would have been otherwise. So that's the vision behind Prime, and we continue to look forward and we look for other technologies. When we talk about orbital, there's this idea that really any technology that could be used on orbit for servicing and manufacturing could do a lot of other things as well. If we're able to get out to small businesses who can contribute any piece of that into the equation, then having a demonstration done earlier provides options for the Space Force when they look at either acquiring a program of record sooner or, as is often the case with the Space Force, going to procure a technology as a service. So that's working really well. And so autonomy just makes sense. If you look at what's happening in the commercial sector, we have self-driving cars out there. There's a lot of different opinions about that, but bottom line is automation is here, it's coming. You're seeing it in all sectors of industry. Why wouldn't we look in the aerospace sector and look at ways that we could automate the roles across the Air Force, across the Space Force? So there will be a solicitation here in 2023. Look for it. It's going to give you an opportunity to come out to our autonomy proving ground at Eglin and test and demonstrate various technologies for automation. And then Vidaf, if you want to talk a little bit more, I mean, we did a lot of market research out there about other potential
primes that we could do?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's an important piece. First and foremost, when we think about those other future primes, so one, getting that feedback from all of you is important. And that's really what helped us lead into the orbital prime activity is our second pass at this. When we look at these other primes going forward, so starting a little bit with history, some of the other things that we looked at microelectronics prime. Clearly that continues to be a challenge when we look at our systems that we have really across our entire Air Force. Those advanced microelectronics, that advanced processing is really critical. Are there ways still that we might be able to, everyone I think is now familiar with the CHIPS Act. So there's opportunity that we see for potential collaboration there. We looked at that. Another one that we looked at is this exciting world of digital engineering, and I think a lot of people refer to it more broadly as digital acquisition. And this is the concept that right from the beginning, from starting to do the requirements development in our wargaming and in our analysis, being able to use the state-of-the-art of those modeling and simulation tools that eventually start to feed into a digital requirements process, that eventually lead into a digital design of those aircraft or spacecraft or those subsystems, being able to create those standardization with those subsystems. So that across this entire life cycle now, you've done this digital development, digital twins in the operations and maintenance, some of the testing, potentially being able to reduce the cost and time to test, and being able to do that just-in-time maintenance. So that concept of a digital prime and the opportunity to merge that software with the development of hardware, with the development of software, is very exciting. So those are a few of the things, and it goes back to this concept. The prime model is not built for everything, right? I mean, NEO here was a key in the B-21 program. SAS has got a test pilot in the F-22 program. We're not going to go develop those types of capabilities through, I think, that prime model. We're looking where is there alignment in an existing commercial market where we're not just being a fast follower, but we're almost doing this co-development in prime. Because if we don't do that co-development, right, when we look, again, that whole of nation capability in our Department of the Air Force, in our interagency processes, in the capital that is available out there, and then obviously the entrepreneur, being able to bring that forward together, identifying where there's high risk and which stakeholder in that whole ecosystem, that whole of nation effort, can maybe take risk at a different profile, at a different impact. And so you're sharing that risk in a way that allows an acceleration. And so I think that model is really clear and a really key thing. The space piece has been an exciting part of this. We dug into orbital prime. I don't know, Rock, other thoughts as we see, really over the last few years in the last few months with Ukraine, the ways that commercial space has been used. Tell us a little bit more where you see opportunity in the space sector for some of these other prime programs.
Right. So, I mean, Agility Prime was outstanding in being able to unlock an entire market that was virtually non-existent. When you look at space and the space economy, and you look at the amount of opportunity that's out there for us to contribute in really unlocking that space economy, the potential for prime within the space layer is limitless. Because space, we're right on that cusp of really scaling so many different mission areas and technologies to get after, to help us not only be able to respond to the emergent threat, but also to help us, contribute to the whole of nation effort to truly build the space economy. If you look at what Space Systems Command is pushing forth now, this whole commercialization services office, the buy versus build. Prime, space primes in particular, plays a critical role in really informing Space Systems Command of that picture of buy versus build. If we're looking at areas that are far out, that are far-reaching, where we can contribute to building a space economy, whether it's through SIVR investment, STRATFI, TACFI, whether it's through offering access to our bright technical SMEs to help industry understand, some of the challenges that they may not be looking after, or whether it's leveraging government resources to begin to get after policy concerns that may create barriers of entry. The opportunity within future space primes are there. And so when we did our first broad brush market research analysis before we settled on orbital prime, there were other areas that we were considering. Areas such as internet and space, this hybrid data movement work. We're also looking at space power as another option. And then cyber, space cyber. And then even when you consider space cyber and you see some of the work that's going on with zero trust architecture, applying that to the space layer, so many exciting opportunities for future space prime initiatives. But as was mentioned before, this isn't a decision that SpaceWorks makes on our own. We do it with feedback from commercial industry. We do it with feedback from our senior leaders to understand how we're aligning with their priorities. And so, sometime in the near future, we're going to go back, do our market research, understand, what's going to follow up to Orbital Prime. Orbital Prime made a huge splash. We got to level up. What is going to be that next prime initiative? We're going to do our due diligence, do our proper market research, and understand where we can contribute best to not just military capability, but the space economy as a whole.
Great, thanks. So tell you what, we just there's a lot of talk, a lot of discussion on Prime. This next question really now goes over to the ventures side. Neo, I'm going to put you back on the hot seat here initially. So it has to do with open topic, right? So open topic, it's shown pretty impressive transition rates, right, beyond some of these the traditional specific topics. So the question out there is, well, why go back, right? Why back? What's going to be different this time? Why move away from open topic? So what do you think?
Yeah, good question, and I'd love to talk about this one a little bit. So bottom line is, yes, open topic, fantastic program because it provides the flexibility for us to go out and let industry present what their ideas are. And that's really, really important, but it is not the only type of innovation that we're looking after. There's a top-down element here where we do want to specify to some degree, here are some areas where we have challenges, and what do you have, and what can you propose in those areas? And so, like I mentioned earlier, this is about aligning priorities to things that are strategically important to the Department of the Air Force. So Secretary of the Air Force has 7 operational imperatives. These are areas that we need to put focus and energy towards finding solutions. We have a powerful tool with the SBIR program. We want to use that and use that as a way to help solve some of these problems. Now that doesn't mean that we're going to be exclusively doing specific topics only focused on OIs. However, there is a reason why we want to have a balance between open topic, between specific topic, and it's to allow that mix between top-down innovation, bottom-up. In addition to that, I saw, yes, how will it be different this time? So it is challenging with specific topics. It is not perhaps as fast as easy. There are some initiatives in the program. One of them is there's a very deliberate process that's been built by the Ventures team to create topics. It's now open to the entire Air Force. So like I said, again, from the get-go, all of those stakeholders between the warfighter and the technologist, connecting all of those dots. This includes our MAGCOMs, this includes our requirements owners, this includes our operators. The ability to open that up to the Air Force, provide the training, and have a very deliberate development cycle to produce these topics, which then go to OSD, which then become part of our solicitation, which will become a routine that we do 3 times per year to provide that continuous option to access and provide proposals there. So that's the direction we're headed. Again, it's the 40% open, 40% specific, 20% in the StratFi, TACFi that we're targeting, and we think we've got a good model and some good new processes to go get after that.
Outstanding. All right, I picked on you twice in a row, so I think I'll pick on Vidoff now. This question has to do with lots of tangential, let's call them, innovation organizations out there, right? From different services, different works, right? There's a whole bunch of out there, and more of them kind of sprouting up every day. So maybe talk about that. Talk about how does AFWERX interact with those? How does AFWERX interact, say, with OSD, right, the Secretary of Defense, to make sure that some of these innovations that we're doing are actually being viewed and leveraged the right way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we just, I think, have to continue doubling down on that piece about partnership. That the idea that, you know, if we look across this innovation space, clearly, you know, among our different services, we've got, obviously here in AFWERX, with the whole Department of the Air Force, we've got great partners in Naval Academy, Army Futures, specific Army Applications Lab. In OSD, they help us run that SBIR program. The DIU team has been 100% linked in from the beginning, right? Largely that initiative that was started by Secretary Carter, that really helped kind of create this first opening, thinking differently about working with industry. So really incredible lessons learned. The Strategic Capabilities Office, the new Office of Strategic Capital, all of those at the Department of Defense level, and that partnership is going to continue to grow. These are different tool sets that are out there, but I'll tell you, in among those different groups, I think part of what we've been struggling with a little bit, and this is the reason we really put Sean here to talk about if we're going to think differently, if we're going to open this door to a lot of different ideas, you have to have a way of managing those ideas. And so getting to a 21st century data infrastructure, to 21st century tools that allow that collaboration. For example, being able to allow a faster ability for a small business company to move from what started out maybe as an Army SBIR contract to an Air Force, right? So these you know, just as a little bit of a follow-up to what Neil was talking about, this idea of open topic is now part of public law. This last year, we've been working very closely with the Congress as they reauthorized our small business program. That's created some challenges, and you know, I guess apologies directly from me as the AFWERX director. We would love to go faster. Obviously, that reauthorization had us think differently about some things, and so we're now implementing those changes. The team is postured now, as you've heard, to now go lay out this very repeatable cycle, and we plan to do that with those different organizations to be able to be very deliberate about, you know, as recently as this last sprint, having Army contracting officers there side by side with our contractors. So that collaboration, I think, really, SAS, is just beginning. What we're working to do, we're very closely with the Office of Secretary of Defense, is there's a lot of different open doors. What we want, you know, in the end, we're looking to drive capability to the warfighter. We realize for those companies, they're looking for that recurring revenue that is continuing to drive that capability to the warfighter. And I think every step as we look at these different tools from those different innovation groups, you know, helpful to get that feedback from all of you. How do we speak in a more coherent manner? We've talked about having you know, this bureaucracy that actually works together, that functions more effectively. To break that bureaucracy, your feedback, you know, from the audience helps on all of that, to help to start to knit these things together. And Neil, I think, you know, you can probably talk to this as well as we move in. This has really been much of what AFWERX 3.0 has been like, has been about, is synthesizing those activities together, tying it into larger budgets. I mean, we're going to have a budget, you know, in this next year, the biggest defense budget that we've seen in all time. So there's funding that's out there. There's great ideas out there. How do we make sure that we're tying the best ideas to those new dollars? And I think that's what 3.0 does for us. I don't know, any additional thoughts on what that looks like going forward in that broader collaboration and then that synthesis of these different tools?
Yeah, I mean, so we talked a little bit about connection and how important it is, and even just in the couple months I've been here, I go to our Austin hub, and guess what? Army Applications Lab, DIU, right? We have locations right across the hall there from each other, and we're talking to each other, as well as the startups that are in the building. So never underestimate the value of some of that informal communication and connection that we have. AFWERX, met with the director there just yesterday. So we have an informal network that we are using to form these connections. We're sharing the different programs and interest areas that we're working on. And then back to what you were saying there, Vidaf, as the budget increases, some of that is coming about from these operational imperatives. There's going to be funding available for projects, again, that specifically tie to the OIs. And so being able to have proposals that address those, we can expect to see more transitions that come out of that in the future.
Good deal. All right, we'll tell you what. We talked a little bit about Prime. We talked a little bit about CyberSitter and Ventures. So let's talk a little bit about Spark. And Rock, maybe I'll start with you on this one, and then maybe you can give the space perspective, and then hand it off to Neo perhaps for the air perspective. But we're talking about, again, lots of different innovation organizations, lots of different open doors. This time let's talk about a front door, right? So some of these front door activities, right? What's the best way, right? What's the best way for people to get connected and for users to better understand capabilities and requirements?
Right. So thanks, Saz. So there's a couple of things within our Spark element that gets after creating this front door activity to introduce start small businesses to some of our toughest challenges. Spark Panel did an outstanding job today, by the way, in helping to educate some of the things that we're already doing. So I just want to expound on some of the activities that they already have going. Just to reiterate the best ways to plug in. So first off, for SpaceWorks, our focus really is on Guardian, the space operator. I talked about earlier SpaceWorks as a facilitator of innovation, creating platforms for solutions and problem solvers, solution owners and problem solvers to help us get after our largest challenges. We're going to continue to do that through platforms such as our Reverse Collider. We saw a ton of success back in April for that Reverse Collider event. You're going to see more Reverse Colliders from the SpaceWorks team starting in 2023. Our Space Operations Command really loved the feedback that they received from industry and really responding to their needs. Our space operators are very open about what their pain points are. So we want to make sure that we're relaying those pain points through additional Collider events. I really love our website too. Our website has great resources for you to be able to understand the CyberSitter process. First off, understand how to properly engage with us through that pipeline. So I encourage industry to go out, learn about the CyberSitter process and how to plug in. We'd like for you to do that before a Reverse Collider event so you can really understand what the next step is once you understand your true value proposition. And then even through our website, we have outstanding Ask Me Anything events that allows you to come in and just ask whatever's on your mind. Whether it's from our ventures team, if you have questions about our CyberSitter process, how to plug in, that channel is there available for you. And then if you look from a broader perspective, you look at what Space Systems Command is doing, they have their SSC front door that they are, again, trying to reach out, educate industry on what their needs are. I encourage you to go back, look at SSC, because SSC is leveraging SpaceWorks to get after the solutions that startups and small businesses are leveraging. So please, leverage the problem sets that are being pushed out of SSC, and feel free to come over into CyberSitter land and partner with SpaceWorks to get after some of those challenges. So there's a number of initiatives that's coming down the pipeline. I have to say the one that I'm most excited for is more frequency of our Reverse Collider events. So I mentioned the SPOC, our Space Guardians. We're going to do a Reverse Collider for tactically responsive space. I made the call out to industry to come and respond to our tactically responsive space solicitation that's going to come out in the spring timeframe. But leading up to that, we want to give you access to that problem owner so you can ask more questions and get an idea of the exact value proposition you have to answer. So, Boss Colonel Lee, I talked about the space side. You want to add a little bit more about the aerial layer and what we're doing on the air side for AFWERX?
Yeah, or just a couple thoughts. I mean, if you are looking for ways to get connected, you probably heard earlier, over 100 Spark cells out there. Chances are probably one near your location. I would suggest reaching out and getting to know who is part of that cell and how you can get plugged in. You mentioned the website. That's another good place to get involved. There's just so much going on now. This was a small program a few years ago. It's expanding, it's working, and so we want to participate in that. I would also add that the reason why we have Spark is because while we're tapping into a powerful source of innovation with the private sector, R&D, and the Cyber program, Airmen and Guardians are innovators as well, and you are closest to your challenges. You know where those pain points are. If we are not reaching out to you, then we're missing a whole half of the equation. So lots of opportunities to get plugged in so that we can understand the challenges. And then from there, it's participating in the events, participating in the Spark cells. That allows us to connect it to the ecosystem, to the battle rhythm where we're releasing solicitations so that we can get activities onto a contract and get prototypes out there and demonstrate it. Any other thoughts, Vidaf?
Well, so I think a key change that we're going to start looking at, this goes a little bit with the kind of that top-down. And when we talk about the top-down, I mean, I think it's important for, it sounds very anti-innovation, but I'll tell you, when we talk to the companies, this idea of the open topic has been great. But what we want to do is to be able to provide a little more clarity on the tools and on the funding that's out there. And so I think that top-down piece is helpful. The other thing that we want to be very deliberate is, again, it's transition. And so you heard Riddler talk a little bit earlier when he was as a Spark lead overall. How do we take these concepts and make sure that there's a quote that's been attributed, an idea of acquire to require, and this idea that we're thinking very differently about our requirements processes when we work in this space. That we're not necessarily, so I get to spend a couple of years on the joint staff where we ran brought new requirements into the Joint Requirements Oversight Council, and these stacks of documents that would take many years to develop. So we're thinking differently about that. And so when we think about this connectivity with the Airmen and Guardian, so very specifically, we have over the last year or so started having these regular collider events. We're gonna pick that back up. We're gonna tie those collider events into these larger operational imperative efforts. Where as we look at Prime, being more deliberate about some very clear milestones that Prime can get to when we're talking about autonomy Prime. How can we show very deliberate milestones? When we launched Agility Prime, we're talking about an entire market of electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Right, this is a multi-decade effort to mature those. The way we think of getting to that multi-decade effort of an entirely new world of democratized air travel, when we think about a world where we're really employing autonomy to create operational advantage in the battle space, the only way of getting to that is those inch stones that turn into milestones. And so I think this 3.0 effort has been an opportunity to focus on those inch stones, and those inch stones require that we are actually going out in a very iterative manner with companies and with the user community, in between having that acquisition capability, so that when the company says, I've got this new technology, the user says that's close. How do we iterate on that very quickly? And so I think a key part of that 3.0 discussion is building out those Spark cells, so that we're getting that frequency of interaction. I mean, we've had a couple of our companies, one of our StratFi companies, said that just the interaction, I mean, when we look at how do we provide value back to the innovation ecosystem, to the investor and the startup, obviously there's this thought that, I mean, we're issuing $1 billion a year. That's a help. In many instances, though, we've heard that a lot of times it's the non-monetary value that we bring back, and our airmen, many instances, are identifying, taking a piece of technology and potentially identifying not just an incredible use for a military, But in some instances, just that interaction, identifying some of those other commercial market use cases. And so we've had companies come back and say, hey, this engagement, that in and of itself, that's solving problems, that's accelerating technology, it's bringing it to our Airmen and Guardians, and it's taking it to a commercial market, which is critical for us. So again, I think it's kind of where AFWERX started, and I think there's so many different ways of leveraging that capability as we go forward.
Outstanding. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do one more kind of big overarching question, and then what we'll do is maybe transition into some sort of like a lightning round where we kind of hit a whole bunch of things. How does that sound? So, and by the way, for all of you out there, thanks for the questions. Keep them going. We will do what we can to kind of take these questions, especially the ones we don't get to, and wrap them up in some sort of a document to get out to you. Because let's face it, I mean, we crave your feedback. That's how we get better. That's how we help everybody else get better as well. So let's see. How about this one? We talked a little bit about open topics, specific topics, but how about big picture? And Neo, I'll throw this one back to you, right? So big picture, right? Today we're talking about AFWERX 3.0 and the launch of 3.0, but what would you summarize as the main differences, right? As you're making this 2.0 to 3.0 type of a transition, how would you, almost just kind of overarchingly describe that to the audience?
Yes, that's a great question. Good opportunity here to circle back. So I wanted to talk about it kind of two ways, right? So there's on the acquisition side, what is changing with our solicitations? That's important. The fact that we are looking at specific topics as they tie into the OIs. There will be opportunities for classified programs in the next year as we continue to work on the details of that. We're not going to talk about that too much today. So that hits on some of it, right? And it's just, you're going to see solicitations that on our side more specifically and deliberately involve Spark from the beginning. So Airmen and Guardian, challenges, those type of activities that you heard about under the Spark program being used to help curate the problems as they get rolled out into these solicitations. So that's a difference. There were some questions about how are we bringing in more companies and how is that different? Part of that has to do with a growing budget that we have, as well as our continued outreach program where we're looking to reach more small businesses who've not worked with the government before and bring them in. So there's going to be opportunities for that. But also on the inside of the organization, remember that we're growing. So as we scale up to an organization that is going to be somewhere between 200 to 300 personnel in a directorate, it's bringing in those tools you heard about during the ops section. It's organizing around a model that allows us to be more efficient with our contracting, with our finance, with our program execution. So that's a part of 3.0 that really has to do with how we execute our mission as a technology directorate within AFRL. That gives us more reach back into the labs, into the expertise there. I would say more direct reach back because in some ways where we weren't before, we are starting to become more embedded with the lab and have access to the personnel and the expertise that's there. So that's a big piece of it. And then like we said, external to the organization, new primes that are coming out, more specific topics that address the OIs, and then some of those other activities that you heard about how we're going to synergize those divisions, which will have the effect of getting us to more transitions and faster transitions. So.
Good deal. Thanks. Well, tell you what, I've got one more, Rock. This one's for you, and then we're going to, I think, maybe jump into some lightning round type questions. So this one specifically deals with space, right? And it says Space Systems Command has an initiative. It's called the Front Door. And through this Front Door initiative, companies can submit ideas, be provided a Sherpa to help them navigate the Space Force developmental ecosystem. So what would you say to the audience out there? Are you tied in with this? How should they proceed? Should they go follow that lead or turn to you? What do you think?
Thanks, so this term Sherpa is entirely not new to SpaceWorks. If you ever jumped into our pitch day pipeline to come and partner with SpaceWorks, you were assigned a Sherpa. that Sherpa guided you through a 8 to 12 week curriculum that helped you to understand your value proposition by introducing you to customers, potential customers. So what you see from the Front Door Initiative with the Sherpa program is exactly the offense that SpaceWorks has been running since inception. And so SSC Front Door is tightly partner with SpaceWorks. We are part of that SSC Front Door as a tool that they can leverage. That Sherpa program was prototyped by us within SpaceWorks and scaled across SSC. So this is an innovative idea that we executed, and we saw a major command come and say, you know what, we really like that. We're going to scale that, and we're going to apply it across the enterprise. And so I really love the fact that SSC took an innovative idea, scaled it across their command, and they're continuing to use it. Those Sherpas will give you access not to just SpaceWorks, but to the SPEC OT Consortium, to the Commercialization Solutions Office, Space Systems Command. They're standing up a Warfighter Integration Office. So there's a wide range of offices and program offices that you get access to through the SSC Front Door. And again, Sherpa program, I take a lot of pride. You know it's working when someone takes the idea, scale it, and now implement it. So if you're looking for an end user, end customer, I highly encourage you to leverage the SSC Front Door. If you want to plug into their program offices, understand their pain points, and if you're a startup or small business, the program office will love to hear you say, hey, we're just trying to get an idea of what your pain points are, because we want to go and pursue an SBIR initiative to get after your pain point. So we're closely tied, partnered, part of that SSC Front Door.
Outstanding. Well, good. We'll tell you what. I feel like you've all been on the hot seat, right? So why don't I just take one, right, to let you all catch your breath. I saw one in here about, we were talking a lot about SBIRs, but what about STTRs? And is there a better way to maybe use those, partner with those? What are some thoughts, right? So what I'll do is I'll actually take this opportunity to give a shout out, right, to the AFRL Regional Hub Initiative. And what that is this is the Air Force Research Lab that is now partnering with a whole bunch of different organizations in 2 different regions. So one is, at least right now, headquartered up there by Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and then another one out in the Midwest in West Lafayette, Indiana, with Purdue University. And the thought here is, how do you get some of these really impressive research institutes out there and get them to partner with the research laboratory, get them to partner with small businesses, get them to partner with other innovative companies out there on the technical side, and specifically look at problems that you find the expertise in those regions, right? So I would say looking forward in 2023, this Regional Hub Initiative, which just kicked off this prior year, is going to keep pushing forward. So if you're not familiar, recommend look into that and see if there are opportunities there to leverage the STTR piece of what's going on, because I think you'll see a big push for both the Cornell focus and the Purdue focus moving forward on that, and AFWERX is certainly engaged in both of those as well.
So while you're on the hot seat, Sass, I want to dig into that a little bit, because I mean, talent. You've been here with AFWERX for about 2 years now, and have brought in some incredible talent to this team. Can you talk just a little bit more, a couple of things that are out there? One, I want to make a plug for this Gig Eagle idea, this idea of being able to quickly access a lot of our reserve talent. Talk just a little bit, what's been the process of building this team? And when
Sure.
you showed up to the team, as a handful of folks, and now, 300, a couple hundred, almost 300 now with some of the government support contractors. Tell us what's been the approach to bringing in talent. What did it look like to continue to build out the talent on this team?
Yeah, well, so let me first and foremost say, right, that we have had outstanding support from our parent organization, the Air Force Research Laboratory, because we can't do anything in a vacuum, right? We just can't go out and make things happen without fantastic support from them. So huge thanks to the Research Lab for what they've done to help us out and what they're going to be doing as we push forward to helping out as well. I tell you what, it's pretty interesting, right? When you have the ability to cast a wide net and find the right talent, and I think somebody said it before, the right talent in the right place in the right time. And what's neat for us is the right place may or may not be location agnostic. You know, a lot of times from a traditional tech development perspective, you focus on a certain geographic area, right? So for the majority of the research lab, for example, you may focus in the Dayton, Ohio region, right? Or you may focus out in the LA region for space, again, in general. What's been nice for us is we've had the flexibility to kind of look elsewhere and not necessarily be tied to a certain geographic area. So that does a couple things. Number one, it helps us find people and find talent that might not normally be around in that geographic area, or might have ties to a different geographic area, or have other ideas or other reasons to stay. The other thing it does is it really opens up this pool of talent to people that maybe traditionally wouldn't be able to work with the Department of Defense or with the Air Force. Certainly during this hiring sprint that we did back in the March to May timeframe, one of the areas of talent that we really looked at were military spouses, because traditionally, as many of you know, military spouses move around with their spouse depending on where the next assignment is or where the next permanent change of station or PCS is. Because we have the opportunity to offer some pretty flexible type of schedules with regard to locations or teleworking, we were able to capitalize on that pool of talent that was traditionally overlooked. And a lot of those people had a lot of fantastic background and experiences that really aligned with the things that we were doing. I think the other thing that makes it kind of pretty unique for us is that we don't just focus on, say, one specific type of person. So we certainly have scientists and we have engineers, but we also have people that are very well versed in program management, in contracting, in financial management. But then really beyond that, when you think about private industry, or you may think about banking or investments, or even people that come from traditional research institutes over on the academic side. Just a wide range of talent that we're looking for. And I think the other thing that helps us out is it's not just on the civilian side, right? So everybody's, for the most part, familiar with government civilian or federal civilians, and sometimes that hiring process, it can be arduous, and we've been very fortunate to work with a whole bunch of different contacts across Air Force Materiel Command and really up into, touching into OPM to help us make that process faster and get the right people and get them on board quickly, because a lot of times the talent that we're looking for isn't going to sit around and wait for 6 months or 12 months if there's a great opportunity that we have, because let's face it, we're in a war for talent, and there's a lot of people that are looking for great talent, and so we have to be able to offer them a rapid onboarding experience and the opportunity to join the team quickly. But that's just the federal civilian piece. Certainly we have active duty military, as you can witness right here at our leadership table, but again, not just on the leadership side. You saw quite a few of our military personnel that are all over this country that are joining us here today from all the different divisions. And on top of that, right, we have the ability to work with different contractors to help us out in specific areas, whether it be flight test or airworthiness or those types of activities. And then we haven't even touched on, the Guard and Reserve piece. Which we've been very fortunate over these past 2+ years to have a large contingent of Guard and Reserve personnel that come help us, sometimes on a full-time basis, sometimes on a part-time basis. So when you put all of that together, right, so a wide scope where you're looking at civilians and military and contractors and Guard and Reserve, and you're also willing to look at people with non-traditional backgrounds, non-traditional educations, non-traditional experiences that can literally be spread across the country. We have the the unique capability to dive in and find that right talent out there to come help us with the team.
Well, huge thanks to you, and as you said, huge thanks to the support that we've been given through the Air Force Research Laboratory, through the Air Force Material Command. Huge thanks to our Chief of Staff of the Air Force. His lovely spouse was kind enough to join us in the sprint that we had, specifically doing that outreach to military spouses and being able to, I think, continue to find those particular areas where there's opportunity to bring talent into this broader ecosystem. So we've got a bunch of kind of short questions, and again, we want to make sure that we're getting the responses out here. What do you think? Maybe a quick lightning round here, kind of step through some of those, and then I think there's a couple of good points to ponder as we're going forward too. So a couple things on here. Question about small business versus big business. So one, if I'm a small business, how do I know I'm a small business? So if you go to, again, our AFWERX.com webpage, really several different things that were recently posted there. So the 2.0 report, there was another question, that's there on the homepage. The details on what it takes to be a small business. Really want to foot stomp that as we develop these larger programs, like the Agility Prime program, for example, that was deliberate at the beginning, that it was not just for small businesses. And so we've got some of our major defense contractors that are participating. So when you think of AFWERX, while we've got a very large budget for many small businesses, we really are looking at opportunities to bring that talent in everywhere, being able to create those different opportunities for big business, for small business, for partnering with those businesses. The in-person demos, we talked to the success of the pitch days. I don't know, what do you think? Pitch days for 2023, Neo?
Yeah, absolutely. It's working, right? And like we say, with the as a learning organization, when we do something that works, we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to incorporate that into our process and institutionalize it. So look for more of those.
All right, well, back on rapid response here. Air Race to Certification. This came out of the Agility Prime program. Going to stand that back up. We started the Innovative Capabilities opening. What does that look like for 2023? Neo?
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking agility here.
Yeah, on the Agility Prime, the other primes.
Agility is not over, right? Agility is, there are still companies out there that are working on technologies that we would like you to come and bring what you have. So we're going to extend the Air Race. We're going to continue to make that program because we're not done with the eVTOL concept. There are a lot of places that can go across the Air Force. It has value. It contributes towards the OIs. So absolutely, look for that in the future.
All right. Next up, Army and Navy, they're going to be deploying open topics. So we see absolutely more collaboration there. I mean, I've been in contact, weekly, monthly. We've got many collaborative spaces. So as they start to create this open topic, that it starts to go across the joint space, across potentially the broader government space, absolutely opportunities. If you see that we're not taking advantage of those, I definitely welcome, and I did mention too, to follow the new AFWERX director on LinkedIn there. You can reach out to with your ideas there. You've got places as well to post your ideas on the AFWERX.com webpage there. You'll see these slides that will be posted there as well, that with the video. So make sure that you're reaching out to get that information, looking at the webpage to find those additional opportunities that are out there. Questions about TAC-FI, STRAT-FI. So there's work that's happening, as I mentioned, the reauthorization. A significant amount of our time over this last year was put into making sure that our 535 board members that all live in our United States Congress were satisfied with the way AFWERX and with the rest of the federal government was working with the small business program. It was reauthorized. There were some changes in that, and the team has been working through those. So expect to see those awards coming, the specific information about where your program is in that process, and then what do the opportunities look like going forward. Will be coming out soon. Any other quick ones? I think there's we could follow on with one of those questions, a little bit more of a deep dive on this interesting topic of selected but not funded. Neo, that's one, as you know, we spent a lot of time with. Talk a little bit. What does it mean to be selected and not funded? What does that look like going forward? And because I think there's sometimes as folks talk about working with the federal government, there's many different steps in that path. What are the different steps that the companies have successfully achieved in that selected and not funded situation?
So, I mean, bottom line is this is, for us at least, a good kind of problem to have, right? I mean, it does mean that this is becoming more competitive. I hear from the ventures team that, you know, there is now a cut line, right? There's a percentage where we just don't have the money to fund it. If you are selected but not funded, it doesn't mean you're done. However, it does mean that you'll need to pursue other opportunities with other government organizations or within the Department of the Air Force, and they can pick that up. And I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but you know, it doesn't have to be recompeted, right? You're eligible for that. You just need to find funding.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important piece. You know, we have looked at as many tools as we could to try to reduce that barrier. As this program launched, you know, we mentioned this was an early effort of experimentation. As it launched, you know, it eventually started to grow and has become increasingly competitive along that way. As, again, we mentioned the defense budget and our operational imperatives, I think what you find, if you are a small business that is out there who has been selected and not funded, one, look at that alignment towards our operational imperatives. How does your particular technology align there? And are there ways that we can help you connect to that organization that has the funding? Because congratulations, you have won. You have been competitively selected. So that's barrier one. The next piece, obviously, is the funding award. So that is, again, opportunity to look at across that landscape, and opportunity that we think will happen as we look across that landscape to be able to bring that additional funding in. Other lightning round questions there. I think that gets to some of the big ones. I don't know, Rock, you walked through a CRADA over this last year and did some interesting things. Tell us how you see using CRADAs going forward. And for those less familiar, so this is the Collaborative Research and Development Agreement. This is an opportunity that allows just good sharing. Tell a little bit how that's been used, Rock. I know there's some of our other Department of the Air Force organizations that have used this as a gateway in for some of the classified funding opportunities. Tell folks a little bit how that's worked for you and other opportunities that you see out there with the CRADA going forward.
Right, thank you, sir. So the CRADAs have been a very useful tool to really get after idea generation, exchanging information, sharing information, under a vehicle that allows us to have those bilateral discussions. So, you know, we've talked a lot about SBIR contracts, SITR contracts. You know, in those contracts, there is exchange of funding. With a CRADA, there's not necessarily that exchange of funding, but there's still tremendous value in a CRADA. This last year, we experimented with CRADAs with venture capital groups to be able to set up a framework to have a dialogue about here are some of the things that we're interested in for the space architecture, and getting feedback from the venture capital groups on, you know, some of the things that they're seeing within commercial industry. Out of those CRADAs, ideas have been generated. You know, getting an idea of, you know, what the market looks like, you know, as a market research tool to better understand the market, has been valuable to us. You know, understanding what technology areas are truly venture backable for startups. That's been clutch. And being able to give that feedback to some of our acquisition leadership, especially when you're beginning to talk about some of our strategic financing opportunities that we're looking at. When it comes to, you know, just having that more classified discussion, we've seen CRADAs used to be a gateway of entry to set up a framework again to have those classified discussions. So back at Space Systems Command, you know, their special programs director, or what was their special programs director, often leveraged CRADAs to have those conversations about particular capability that they were looking for at a higher level. Of course, there's some things that needs to be, you know, in place in hand before that CRADA is signed. But again, a CRADA gives us the opportunity to just simply have the conversation without an exchange of funding, to share information. And we find it valuable, and our partners that have been on the other side of CRADAs have found it just as valuable.
Yeah, so I think that's a really important piece, and Seth, maybe this is worth going back to you, because when we look at innovation, again, it's not just the shiny objects out there, but to some degree, you know, and as we've looked at the development of AFWERX 2.0 and 3.0, again, really excited about the fielding of new capabilities. When we look at the challenges that lie ahead, when we look at the speed that we see technology moving, and this is stated, I think, very clearly in our Chief's Accelerate, Change, or Lose, it's not just about our standard cost, schedule, performance metrics, but it's actually restructuring relationships, it's restructuring processes. So I'd like to get your perspective on this. Before you were the Deputy Director of AFWERX, you were the overall Chief for Prime, and as you know, Prime, it largely attacks kind of the challenges and opportunity for innovation in processes. Built into AFMC, the Air Force Materiel Command, so many strategic capabilities, from being able to have some of the most exquisite S&T labs, having our test and evaluation, you know, amazing ranges with test infrastructure, and most importantly, the talent of those testers that are out there. Obviously, the Lifecycle Management Center, looking at our Sustainment Center. Nuclear Weapons Center has been doing some of the, maybe the most, in a very structured environment, some of the most amazing innovation. Tell us the challenges you ran into, successes that you think you were able to achieve, and where do you see opportunity going forward in that process innovation piece?
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, you're right. I think we foot stomped this back during the operations division talk. But yeah, I mean, innovation is not just technology. In fact, if we get this great technology that comes through and we don't have the opportunity or the ability to get it quickly through to transition to a user, well, then it really just ends up sitting on the shelf, or it just gets thrown off to the wayside. So, let's talk challenges quickly, right? So yeah, challenges were, you know, you're faced everywhere you go, right, with you know, just difficulty in traditional methods of having to get things through. So I think the one place that we started off trying to make a difference was on the airworthiness piece. You know, so airworthiness, especially when it comes to electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, just had really never been done. And so that process is out there. That process is defined, but maybe not 100% applicable to what we were looking to do. And so our challenge was, how do you take an existing process and how do you pivot it and have it relate to the problem that you are working on? And then on top of that, how do you make it go quickly? And so that was our challenge. And I think our success was finding the right people with the right mindsets that had the right connections to figure out, all right, where can we take this process and make it fit what we're looking to do. And so not only did we reach out to some of our other AFRL directorates, we were able to reach out to some experts in the field. We were able to reach out to the Federal Aviation Administration, even able to reach out to NASA and find experts there at NASA that were very, very familiar with this airworthiness process. And so what we were able to do is take all of them, bring them together, and highlight not just, hey, you know, not just complaining about the problem, but going, look, here is a problem that we are facing. We're looking for a solution for us. But we also need that solution to be applicable going forward. How can we all work together now to, number one, solve it in the short term, but then number two, make sure that things are ready to go in the long term as well. And so that was probably one of our bigger successes, was taking that process and applying it to electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. And we successfully got 4 of them, I think, through the airworthiness process in the span of 12 calendar months. So we found that to be a huge success, and what we're going to try to do moving forward is taking what we learned there and scaling that then to other things. So Things like ATOs, right? If you're familiar with authorizations to operate, right? Again, another big process that's out there that impacts a lot of people, including us. How can we take some of those lessons learned and get that type of a process going better? Maybe taking digital principles and applying them to airworthiness, applying them to ATOs, and looking for trusted type solutions to help us get through that process. So there we go. I think those are some of the big things that we're looking to do here going forward. But again, those process innovations are sometimes just as important as the technology innovations, because you need them married together to get them through to the end.
Super. Well, I think we worked our way through many of the questions. We plan on posting some more frequently asked questions out there as well. So I think we're getting to the kind of conclusion here, maybe around the room, starting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, number one, right, huge thanks to Vidaf as he gets ready to go, and a huge welcome, right, to Neo coming in. Number two, huge thanks to all of you out there that spent your Wednesday with us. And I think in some cases, I think we have some friends out there that are probably Thursday right now, based on what we heard. So thanks for spending your Wednesday and or your Thursday with us. And then number three, I'd say, keep giving us that feedback, right? There's lots of avenues to provide the feedback, because ultimately what we're trying to do is just help everybody get better, right? And look for ways to improve, look for ways to innovate, look for ways to get better, right? And so whether you visit our website, whether you send us messages online, don't be afraid to reach out. Our team is here to get that feedback. We crave that feedback. So thanks for being with us. Brock, how about yourself?
Yeah, so first off, thank you to all of our partners that's online that have joined us today. Your continued interest, your continued engagement with the AFWERX team, with the SpaceWorks team is one of the primary reasons why we're still here. We still have a ton of work to do. Our success continues to depend on the great solutions that you provide us. Also would like to thank the wider AFWERX team for pulling this event together. SAS for MCN, keeping things moving along. I think this is one of the first events where we're actually on time. So great job to SAS and the production team that helped pull together a great event. Shout out to Colonel Diller. So, sir, really thank you for your leadership since I've been on the team. It's been phenomenal, working with you. Truly a big brain. Trying to keep up with you and your ideas and where you're trying to push, where you push the team. It was fun. Learned a lot. Really, really do appreciate your leadership. And it's helped me personally, as a leader. So we will miss you. Colonel Lee, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on the team. Already heard great things about you. I think I'm the one on the panel that can brag and say I met him first, because your introduction into this ecosystem was a SpaceWorks event, right? Sure. So, but even in, just your interaction, I knew that you're super great person to work with. So I'm very excited about having you on to lead this AFWERX 3.0 effort. So. Thanks. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rock. And I guess I'll just leave with a final thought here. We talk a lot about $1 billion a year, thousands of contracts. That's all very important. But really, this is about mobilizing tens of thousands of Americans out there, out in the private sector, Airmen and Guardians, and getting after those ideas and moving them along to solve the problems. So if you're probably on the line with us here today, you're one of those, and you should be proud of what you're doing. Look forward to working with you in the future. So thanks, Vidaf.
Yeah, really, for me, two things. Huge amount of gratitude for all of you who have, we've been a startup. Many of you out there are startups. Boy, it's a rough business sometimes. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for sticking with us through some of those challenges, allowing us to hopefully drive you to success, drive us to success, and drive our nation to success. Thanks most importantly to the team who's pulled this together. Certainly today, and for those first folks who started AFWERX since 1.0, for those who have made it through this merger in 2.0. Huge gratitude for all of that. And then lastly, just huge optimism, right? There's challenges around our world today, but when I look at the innovation in the ecosystem, when I look at among the entrepreneurs, when I look among our entrepreneurs, I think America can sleep well at night knowing that there's folks working on that, and in particular, great leaders like Neil. So thanks for that partnership. Thanks for being here with us, and thrilled to see what you all do in the future. Have a great day.